Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen is demanding to have a baby with OP. My wife is demanding to have another baby with me, even though I really don't want to. My wife and I have 2 kids who are 9 and 6. After the second one was born, she said she was done having kids, even though we had discussed having 3 prior to marriage. We talked about it for a long time, but I love her and I agreed to change our plans. She had an IUD, but we still use other forms just for extra precaution. She really didn't want to get pregnant again. About 4 years ago, we agreed that I would get a vasectomy. It made sense since it was a minor surgery, unlike her getting tubal litigation. It went well, and after I healed up, I went for testing, and it worked. If you ever get a vasectomy, please do the follow-up testing. My friend from college thought he was good to go, and now he has a kid. So she got her IUD removed, and life was good, until her sister had another kid. Then one of her friends had a baby, and my wife went absolutely nuts. She wants to have another baby now. She made a mistake and wants me to go get my vasectomy reversed, or to do harvesting and get IVF. What the heck? I need another operation now? And we're actually doing great financially right now. Her taking 2 years off from work would be a huge hit. I said we could look at adoption or fostering, but that I was not interested in having another kid. She tried bringing up our agreement from before we got married, but I shut that down immediately. So for the last 4 months, our marriage has been a simmering battle about another kid. She has had her parents over, my parents over, her sisters and their families, all trying to convince me that I should give in. Forget that. I'm almost 44. In 12 years, my youngest will be starting their career or their post-secondary education. I can see the finish line now. I did offer all the family members that chimed in a fun option. I agreed to do harvesting if all the men who agreed with my wife did it as well, even if they had working tubes, at their own expense, and that they pool their money and pay for all bills related to IVF and the raising of a third kid. They all say I'm being ridiculous and petty. I reminded them that as a unit, they all agreed with my wife when she said she was fine having 2 kids. They wanted to have input then, and it was free. I said this decision would require skin in the game. It all came to a head last weekend. My folks had the boys, so we could have a nice couple of days to ourselves. Instead, my wife and I got into a screaming match. She said I obviously didn't love her if I wasn't willing to do this, that we are well off enough to afford all the expenses of another kid, blah blah blah. I told her no in no uncertain terms. We had money in the bank for retirement and fun, and that's what it was for. Not for her to get her hormones calmed down. She accused me of caring more about money than her happiness. I reminded her that she was the one who insisted that having a third kid would demolish her career. She started crying and saying I was a jerk for denying her another kid, that it was not that much of a sacrifice. I finally unloaded and said that a divorce would be cheaper for me than another kid. That shocked her into silence. We've barely spoken since. I think I broke her. Our retirement funds are separate, our house is in both our names, and she earns slightly more than I do. If we get divorced, I will get 50-50 custody. I would want it. She would get no alimony, and I might get a few dollars in child support. I feel bad threatening her with divorce. I love her and want to spend the rest of my life with her, but I'm sick and tired of having her make our reproductive decisions like my opinion doesn't matter. Edit. A bunch of you keep asking how I would tell my sons that I'm divorcing their mom because she wants another baby. I just typed this as a reply, but I actually like it enough to paste it here so you can stop asking. Mommy and Daddy agreed before getting married that we would have 3 babies. But then Mommy got an important job and did not want to, and I quote, waste her time having another kid and wrecking her body again. Daddy was sad, so he held down for 4 years hoping she would change her mind. But then they talked and she said it was a permanent decision. Since Daddy loved Mommy, he did not want her to be hurt even a tiny bit, so Daddy went to the doctor. At the doctor, they gave Daddy a procedure so that he could no longer have babies. Then Mommy was happy for almost 2 years. Then Aunt Jody and Aunt Carmen and Mommy's friend Maddie all had baby girls. And it made Mommy sad and jealous that the girls were getting all their attention. So Mommy talked to Daddy and said to go to the doctor and get this reversed. This made Daddy upset because no way I'm doing that. Mommy got lots of people to try and tell him to change his mind, but Daddy's happy with his life and told them all to buzz off. Mommy spent 4 months day and night bugging Daddy nonstop. Then remember when you stayed with Oma and Opa? Mommy and Daddy were going to have a fun weekend just doing Mommy and Daddy stuff until she would not drop it. So Daddy told her that if him and his sons were not enough for her, then he would say that they should go their separate ways. But Daddy loves you boys very much, and you are more than enough for him, and he will always be there for you. Edit. I would never actually say that to my sons. Once again, it was just a response to all the not-so-bright people asking how I would explain it to them. Odds are I would take them to a family counselor so that I could tell them and then deal with some of the aftermath. I wrote that in anger, but I kind of liked it. Not the jerk. Friends and family need to shut up. It's none of their business. The next time she tells you that you don't love her, throw that right back at her, because certainly she doesn't love you with the way she's treating you. One of my friends had a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Her mom's friends got into her ear about having a third baby. They told her it wasn't much more work when you already have 2. After being diaper-free for almost 2 years, they're once again knee-deep in all the baby stuff that comes with having a new baby. The first 2 kids were old enough for independent play, so she was getting some time to do her own things. Now it's baby central again, and she's exhausted and pretty upset at anyone who told her it would be easy. Never listen to anyone who isn't going to help with the baby a lot. Not the jerk. She talked you into not having a third kid and getting a vasectomy. Her career was important to her 6 years ago. It should be important now. I'm not sure you guys will stay married without a lot of counseling. I'm not one of the psychos that automatically recommends divorce. Good luck. Maybe encourage her to go to therapy. I experienced the same thing after having my tubes removed during my C-section. I made the choice myself, and I was done having kids. A year later, I wanted more. My husband agreed to do IVF with the condition of me going to therapy first. IVF takes a lot out of you physically and mentally. He wanted me to be clear-minded. The more I talked to my therapist, the more I realized that I wanted more babies because my sense of self was only being a mother and a wife. I had lost myself and didn't know who I was anymore. Self-discovery and working on myself was what I needed, not another baby. Don't threaten her with a divorce. Get a divorce. Because if she gives in, you will have to deal with her simmering resentment for the rest of your lives together. Get the divorce. In the long run, it will be less stressful emotionally and financially. Be fair in the split of marital assets and debts. Be fair in the child custody arrangement, probably 50-50, holidays, school breaks, and vacation. Then move on. Do not look back, just move on. Go and live your best life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know. Nothing's better than being married to someone who feels the exact same way you do about having kids or not. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to never volunteer me to help her family again? My wife, 38 female, and I, 39 male, have been married for 8 years and we have a 4-year-old son. My wife's younger brother, Joe, and his girlfriend are moving into an apartment together at the beginning of June. But girlfriend's lease is up at the end of April, so she needed to move out of her place. But Joe currently lives in a studio apartment, so he doesn't have room for all of her stuff. So they were going to move all of girlfriend's stuff into a storage unit for a month until they get their new place together. A little over a month ago, Joe had asked my wife if we would be able to help them move girlfriend's stuff, and she agreed. My mother-in-law was supposed to watch our son so we could both help, but she fell ill and had to cancel. My wife suggested trying to get a babysitter for that day, but I didn't want to spend hundreds on a babysitter to help someone move. That's dumb. And bringing a 4-year-old with us would not be helpful to anyone. This turned into an argument between us because she said I should help them move while she watches our son since I'm stronger than she is and I know how to drive our truck with a trailer. I told her that she should help them and have them rent a U-Haul for the day. We compromised by telling Joe that I would help them, but they need to get a U-Haul instead of using our truck and trailer. Then the morning of the move, this past Saturday, my wife told me that a friend of hers got sweet tickets through work to a hockey game for that day and invited them. Yes, sweet tickets to a playoff hockey game. She said she would be bringing our son since her friend was bringing her kids too. Great, so not only do I get stuck helping someone move, but my wife and son get to go have an amazing experience together that I miss out on. And yes, this was my son's first major sporting event and I was missing it. And wouldn't you know it, Joe never got a U-Haul, and his girlfriend wasn't even close to packed up and ready when I got there. I spent 7 to 8 hours and multiple trips back and forth helping them move. All the while, my wife is sending pictures to our family group chat of how much fun they're having at the hockey game. When everyone was home that night, my wife was surprised that I wasn't in a good mood. She said that I acted like I barely cared when our son was telling us about the hockey game and how much fun it was. I asked her if she was seriously confused about why I was upset, and she told me to tell her. So I started railing off all the reasons I had to be upset. She volunteered me to help. She got to spend the day doing something very special with our son that I missed out on. Her brother and his girlfriend were not prepared, and I had spent the entire day doing manual labor. I ended my little rant by telling her that she is never going to volunteer me to help her family ever again. She told me I was overreacting, and I can't hold it against her that her friend invited them to the game. She also said I'm not being fair by blaming her for Joe and his girlfriend. Not the jerk. You're not holding it against her that her friend invited them to the game. That's ridiculous. You're upset that while she volunteered and strong-armed you into doing this favor, she apparently was having a grand old time. How callous do you have to be to not only continuously send pictures of their good time while you're stuck doing something she made you do, but then to pretend you're upset because she was invited by a friend? I'm guessing you couldn't care less that she was invited. I'm guessing what actually hurts is her blatant disregard for your time and energy. On top of that, missing your son's first event like that. She also said you're not being fair by blaming her for what happened. Remind me again who volunteered you for the job. Not the jerk. If your brother-in-law and his girlfriend weren't packed when you arrived, you should have left and told them to call you when they were done packing. If someone asks for assistance moving, it implies that they're packed. I've learned to offer X amount of time when friends ask for help moving, painting, or doing renovations. So I will tell them directly that I'm willing to help them for 4 hours and then ask when that would be the most helpful. Then I'm happy to help pack boxes, move boxes, unload the trailer, arrange furniture, whatever. It doesn't matter. But once my time is up, I'm out of there. Then I buy myself pizza and beer on the way home. Am I the jerk for skipping my dad's retirement party because my mom asked me not to bring my son? My wife, who's 30, and I, 42, have 2 kids who are 15 and 2. I met my wife when she was a student in a trades program I used to teach at. She was 20 and working her butt off to support herself and her son. I helped her with her studies, and when she left school, I wished her well. She returned for her 2nd and then 3rd year of instruction. I literally watched her go from someone that was just barely an adult to a truly competent tradesperson. I helped her get a job with a company that trusts me to give recommendations for employees that have a future. She came back to see me when she got her white hat. That means she was given a foreman position. She came by to thank me for my help. I told her that she did everything herself, and all I did was point her in the right direction. We went for coffee though, then a couple of lunches, then dinner, and so on. We got married about a year later. About 2 years after that, our daughter was born. She went back to work, and I took a job with the company as QC. I know that's a lot of backstory, but it's relevant. My ex-wife is my mom and dad's favorite person. They like her more than they like me. Even after she divorced me because I stuck with teaching instead of making bank in the field. I've seen hundreds of relationships fall apart in my trade because the guy is never home. I'm the only guy I know in the trades whose wife left him because he was home too much. She divorced me 3 years before I met my wife, but my parents still invite her to family stuff. She ended up marrying a teacher like herself, and they seem happy. Maybe it was just me she didn't want to be around. We had no kids together. So my dad retired from his big deal job, and my mom had a big party for him. When she invited me, she said it would be boring and that I did not need to bring my son. She has known him since he was 10 years old, and it still bugs her that he's not biologically mine. I asked if my nieces and nephews were coming, and she said yes. I asked if my daughter was invited, and she said yes. I said I would talk to my wife about it and let her know. I didn't bother. Anywhere my kid is not welcome, I'm not going to. I took my family to Legoland that weekend instead. My son loves Lego, and my daughter loves the bright colors. My mom was upset that we didn't go. She told everyone that I chose to spoil my kids instead of celebrating my father with family. I told my brothers, sisters, and my dad that she tried to get me to not bring my son. They all lost it on her. Now she's crying because everyone is mad at her for excluding my son and causing me to skip my dad's party. I would have kept my mouth shut if she had kept my name out of her mouth. All of my family, including my dad, have accepted my son into the family. My mom is the only one that has a problem with me adopting him. She's still mad I didn't make it work with my ex. The reason I did not just show up with my entire family or tell everyone ahead of time why I wouldn't be there is because I didn't want to cause a scene at my dad's party. I would rather be the inconsiderate jerk that goes on vacation than wreck a family event, and I did not want to expose my son to my mom and her passive-aggressive BS. She thinks that I was mean for exposing her. I just wanted a nice stress-free weekend with my family. Not the jerk. If she felt her reasoning for excluding your son was reasonable and justified, then what's the problem with telling the other members of the family? She's upset because she knows she was in the wrong and got busted. You did the right thing. I too would have preferred to go to Legoland than an uncomfortable family situation where you don't feel welcome. Not the jerk. It was clearly not about not having people's kids at the party. It was just about excluding him because he's not blood. And if I'm reading between the lines correctly, probably also a healthy helping of moral shame for divorcing your former wife and marrying a new woman who had a kid. No kid deserves to be treated this way, especially not a teenager, when things are already hard enough emotionally. You did the right thing. Side note, if it were me, I'd be keeping both kids away from her from now on. She doesn't get to pick and choose her grandkids, and I wouldn't want to expose either of my kids to her passive-aggressive behavior. Also, if I hadn't already, I'd talk with my wife about how she's been treated at family functions in the past, because I'd be willing to bet there's been a lot of questionable behavior there too. Am I the jerk for moving out with my infant because I can't stand my stepdaughter? I moved out with my 3 kids, including my infant. Been with my husband for 8 years. He has a 13-year-old daughter, my stepdaughter. I have a 14-year-old son, a 9-year-old son, and my husband and I have a 5-month-old daughter together. Prior to me giving birth, life was pretty smooth sailing. We did family trips often, had Sunday family night, designated one-on-one time with each of the kids, except my oldest, who has determined he's too cool for us. But if he wanted, it was always available. There were a few fights between the kids, but nothing major, and it was usually resolved within minutes. Since I had the baby, everything is downhill. My home has become a war zone between my youngest son and my stepdaughter. They are constantly fighting. 90% of the time, it's my stepdaughter instigating it. She knows my son has ASD and ADHD and doesn't like being touched, so she will go up to him and poke him continuously, even after being told to stop, and then calls him a psycho when he flips out. He can sometimes rage out, but doctors say it's common with ADHD. But it's literally on purpose. She purposely provokes him to a point where my husband and I have told her at least 8 times that she has to stay away from him entirely for the rest of the day. Well, I've noticed lately that my youngest son has been getting incredibly emotional lately. When I try to talk to him about it, he screams at me. It's been a huge deal, and I've been over the top stressed out. He is in therapy, behavioral, OT, and regular therapy. Stepdaughter is also in therapy. Well, his behavioral therapist opened up to me about 2 weeks back, saying that she was concerned about him and asked specifically about how much influence my stepdaughter has over him. She said a lot of stuff had been said in therapy. I won't go into detail, but it was enough to warrant a conversation with my husband and him cracking down on what she was saying to my son. He eventually ended up grounding her for that and something else, and it just made it worse. Well, this morning around 6 a.m., school vacation, my son just starts flipping out over nothing. I tried talking to him and he told me, "Shut up, you never even loved me anyways." I asked him what he was talking about and he just screamed at me to shut up again. My stepdaughter, who was at the table eating cereal, says, "Get used to it. Like I told you, nobody loves middle kids. You should just move out now." He stormed off to his room. I asked her if she was the reason why he was acting like this morning, and she said, "No, you are. I didn't make him a middle kid. All I did was explain to him that he will never be loved again, but I didn't make that happen. You did." She's also a middle child in both households, so she talks about middle child syndrome often. My husband walked in and told his daughter to go to her room and took her phone yet again. He went to talk to me and apologize, but I just kind of cut him off and said, "I actually can't do this anymore. Your daughter is destroying my son's life and making him think that I don't even love him. I'm starting to hate her to a point where I can't be near her, so I'm going to leave. I would like you and your kid out of my home within 2 months. I own the property and have for 15 years. He's trying to argue that this can be fixed, but it's really come to the point that I just can't stand her, and I don't want her near me or my son. He says he can't believe I'm throwing us away over something that can be fixed." Not the jerk. Maybe it can be fixed, but it sure as heck won't be fixed while that kid is in your home. 13 is old enough to understand bullying. Not the jerk. Stepdaughter messed around and found out. OP should leave the door open if the daughter makes a conscious decision and efforts to make amends and genuinely change her behavior. Her dad will be upset at her for a while. I envy no one in this situation. Not the jerk. It's gotten worse in the 5 months since you've had a kid. Unfortunately, it can't be fixed in time to protect your son or undo the damage your stepdaughter has done. It's a really sad situation, but you do need to protect your kids, and it seems that the daughter's therapy isn't helping her in any meaningful way. Am I the jerk for telling my mom if they move back to Greece, I won't follow? So for context, my family and I have been living in America for 10 years, which in my mom's words is longer than they expected to be here. For the past 4 months, my mom has been telling me how Dad is tired and I don't think he will last here for another summer. Anytime I talk to her, this has been the topic. You know Dad is tired and he would like to move back. I can see it in his eyes, were her exact words. And because I only have 1 year left of school, she keeps telling me to find colleges in Greece because we will be moving. I tried to not give her an answer and just smile and leave anytime she says that. I thought about it and I don't want to move. I don't want to leave this place. She doesn't understand why I don't want to move because she sees Greece as her home, which I understand, she grew up there. But I lived here for 10 years and have no memories, or good memories, of Greece anyways. Yesterday we had a talk about it. She brought it up as soon as I came from school. You know, I found a good college for you in Greece. It's very close to home, and gave me directions of how to get there, like I knew the streets. I didn't say anything and tried to eat my food. You know Dad is tired, and I don't think he can do this any longer, she continued. Look, we can stay until you finish school, and then you can go to college in Greece. She continued, you need to think reasonable. Plus, it's going to be an American college. You don't even need to know Greek. I got tired and finally told her, I don't want to go back. I would like to stay here instead. She got angry and started screaming. You understand that Dad can't keep working like this. He's getting tired. I told her okay, and that I still want to stay here. She told me I can't support myself because I don't have a job, and I told her I'm going to get a job this summer. She paused for a moment and started telling me how it's not like I'm going to lose anything. I don't even have friends and don't go outside, so why would I want to stay here? I screamed back at her and told her, I'm not telling you to stay here. I'm not yelling at Dad for being tired. I just don't want to move. She didn't stop but got angrier and told me, and where are you going to live? You know we will sell this house, right? You know how hard it is to get an apartment. You don't even know how to cook your own food. So at that point, I just went back to eating and stopped talking. She still went on about the college, and I said to her, while laughing, after that whole hour, Mom, can I just get some silence? You've been talking for an hour. Please, I'm trying to eat. Then finally, she just went on talking about the show on the TV. Not gonna lie, that conversation exhausted me so much that I immediately fell asleep at like 5 p.m. until it was morning. But moving back to that place is not an option. I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I just hope she stops talking about it. Not the jerk for wanting to stay, but it sounds like you need to start making plans. Getting a job in the summer is great, but how much will you make? How much do you need to make in order to stay? Do you have roommates? Friends you can stay with? Do you have a support system here? This is a big decision and it needs to be thought out. If you can make it work, then great. I'm not going to pass judgment, but according to you, after an exhausting conversation, you went and slept for a minimum of 12 hours and you think you're going to be able to support yourself through college with a summer job? You also apparently have nothing in place or planned for where you're going to live or how. I mean, I'm sorry, but this just sounds like a total disaster waiting to happen.
Entitled mom demands I serve her after we close and embarrasses her daughter. So this happened a couple years ago. I was telling a coworker about this today and decided to share. And a little background info. I've worked in retail for over 8 years and have spent 5 of that working in the deli. Now, even after 8 years and multiple different stores, I still love people. I always try and see the best in people, and anytime I have bad customers, I try to kill them with kindness. Because of this, I always strive to give the best service possible and even get on my coworkers' nerves because I will take people after closing, unless our slicers are already clean. Anyways, the cast. There's me, entitled mom, and the manager. So one Friday night, when I was still working for Walmart, both of my other closers called off. My manager gave me permission to close down at 7 instead of 8 and specifically told me not to take anyone. He was aware of me helping people after closing because I wasn't allowed overtime and needed to finish up. So around 7:45, entitled mom walks up with her daughter, around my age, and begins to order. Me, ma'am, I'm really sorry, but I had to close early tonight. I'm very short-staffed and have already cleaned all my slicers. Entitled mom, "Oh yeah, we'll see about that." She walks away as her daughter follows and shoots me an "I'm sorry" look. As soon as they walk away, I started to put my slicers back together because I know what's coming. And sure enough, a few minutes later, entitled mom comes back with my manager in tow. And of course, he tells me I need to help them. Manager: "I know what I said before, but you have to help her. I'm sorry." Now, like I said before, I try to get these kinds of people with kindness, so right away I try and diffuse the situation. Me: "Ma'am, I'm sorry for denying you service. I really hate telling people no, but I'm just behind." Entitled mom: "You don't seem very sorry. You were so rude when I came up here the first time. You shouldn't have told me no." Me: "You're right, ma'am. I'm sorry." Her daughter is still looking very uncomfortable and seems to be trying hard to say she's sorry without speaking up. My manager actually stayed and helped, and him and I got to chatting, and I can't remember how, but me being from New York came up. We were in Florida, and suddenly entitled mom chimes in like our first interaction never happened. Entitled mom: "Oh my god, you're from New York? Me too." What followed was a generic, forced friendly conversation as I engaged with her and also tried to pretend like our initial interaction hadn't happened, but I could see her daughter had relaxed a bit and didn't seem so embarrassed anymore. After we finished up and she left, my manager praised me for diffusing the situation and still being friendly. All I could say was, "Thanks, but forget that dumb jerk," and we shared a laugh at her expense. She became the butt of a lot of jokes up until I left, so at least I got something out of it. Speaking of deli meats, what's your favorite deli meat of all time? Please let us know. Deli ham, bruh. End of discussion. Steal my security deposit and ignore me for a year? Say goodbye to your staff and reputation. So, background. Around Thanksgiving 2017, my wife's company offered her a fantastic promotion, which she accepted even though it meant moving across the state by January 1st. The month of December was insanity. List and sell the house. Find a short-term rental which would accept 4 pets, pack, move, etc. A lot of whiskey magically disappeared, but I got it all done and we moved into our rental house and all was well. We bought our new home and moved, and the rental lease officially ended on April 1st. The property manager followed the state laws correctly so far, and we were told we'd get the $1,800 owed for our security deposit back by May. Spoiler alert, it never came. I spent the next 4 months going back and forth with the property manager and hearing, "It's coming. We never got your paperwork." Blah, blah, blah. I got sick of this and got 2 different lawyers involved and sent them official demand letters. I also filed a formal complaint with the State Division of Real Estate against their license. The property manager kept telling the state investigators that they would pay us back, but nothing ever happened. I didn't want to formally sue via our lawyer because he charges $300 an hour and it's all up front. I was hesitant to go to small claims court because it's a $5,000 max in our state, and the damages we're legally owed are 3 times the $1,800 deposit, which puts us over that cap. So I'd have to give up on some of the damages we're legally entitled to seek, eat roughly $500 total in fees, and then go through that whole process for the next year, and assuming we won the judgment, then go through the collections process for another year or 2. An option, one we'd win, but a big pain in my butt. So this is where the pro-revenge comes in. It was initially petty. Say their website is crappypropertymanager.com. I bought crappypropertymanager.co for $12 and posted all of my screenshots and info about their theft and BS for the world to see. And then I bombed it all over their business Facebook pages as well as the personal pages for the main partners and their Yelp page. I got a kick out of it. They took their pages down. Petty revenge wins, right? My little website caused a bigger boom than I anticipated. Basically, this property manager has 2 principal agents in charge and a broker. One of the agents is married to the broker. Beneath them, they had 5 realtors. I sent my new website to them all, everywhere I could. Turns out, the partner who isn't married to the broker had no idea that the broker and his wife were stealing money from the property management company. The realtors had no idea either. 2 of them quit immediately, and one reached out to me to let me know why she quit and that she was going to find a new broker. But the other principal of the company was mortified. She asked me to leave her name out of it, take the stuff down, etc. And I just politely but coldly replied that, "Hey, your business partner/broker stole my money, and I can back everything I'm saying with documents. Not my problem." She promised she'd get things resolved, and for the first time in 10 months, the broker started answering my emails. We worked out a deal, and they're now paying us $200 a month until December, which will cover the amount owed plus the extra for our legal fees. The first check came last week. It actually bounced, but I made them send me a cashier's check, and they have to send cashier's checks going forward. But we did get our first installment. I've also learned that the state investigation has been turned over to the state's legal department, and the broker and his wife will likely lose their license. The state investigators said they had multiple complaints against them, but I was the most thorough and had the most documentation against them. So our complaint was a big reason they had the ammo to push it to the legal team. So all told, my crappy little website ended up costing them 40% of their real estate team, resulted in them removing their business Facebook listings, pushed the investigation into their license over to a state legal team, still ongoing, and resulted in them having to finally start paying us not only the $1,800 we're owed, but the legal fees I spent on top of it. Oh, and that bounced check? I made them send me a certified check for $12 to cover the bank fee for that too. Update. From March until October, we received the checks for $200 a month, no problem. They were a few days late sometimes, but they arrived, so I went with it. The initial March check had bounced, but they sent certified after that, so it also wasn't a huge deal. Then October hits. They don't send a certified check, but since they had been good all year and we were nearing the end, I deposited it. It shouldn't be a shock that it bounced, so I emailed them to get this fixed. The property manager says, "Sorry, I goofed. Since we only owe you $600, I'll send you one check now for $312, plus half the bounce check fee, and the rest in December." I agree. Weeks pass, nothing. So I reach out in early December and finally get a check, but it's only for $200. I was fed up with their games and this BS hitting almost the 2-year mark, so I stuck to the deadline and said I expected the remaining $412 by 12/15. The 15th comes and goes, so I email again on the 16th, and what do you know? Radio silence. Totally ignored. So I waited until the 23rd, right before Christmas, and just sent them a short email saying exactly that the website was going back up and I'd resume legal actions since they decided not to honor our new written agreement. The partner who got the repayment process started in the first place had finally had enough and snapped and said she couldn't deal with this over Christmas and that she'd repay me herself to be done with this. I received our final check for $412 today. After 2 years of this BS, it's finally over, and I have all of our security deposit returned, plus some to cover my legal fees and certified mail costs. The total fallout on their end, 3 of their 5 realtors ended up leaving based on my website. They had to repay me everything they owed me, and I didn't let them off the hook. And I just used the state tool to look up their real estate license, and the license hearing did not go their way, and their license is on probation with 11 complaints filed against it, which will all require repayment and remediation, with the most recent complaint being an internal administrative complaint based on my actions, which will likely result in them losing their license altogether in 2020, although that's just an assumption, but a likely one since the administrative complaint is the most recent and is wholly open. Final update. That's where I figured it would end in late 2019, with 11 open complaints on their license and the state just giving them slaps on the wrist. I figured it was as good as we could expect. Tonight, I got curious and bored and hopped on the state license portal to see what had happened. When we left off in 2019, they had 11 open complaints, 10 of which were from renters and 1 from the state itself. That was the one which had me curious. The state closed out my case and 9 others in June of 2019, which put their license on probation for a year, gave them courses to take, and some whopping fines, which were basically nothing. I don't know how they messed up, but the state complaint got taken higher and into this year, and as of July of 2020, their license has been completely revoked. Not just the business license for their real estate, but the personal license for the jerks who did me around too. I got my money back and they're out of business partly because of me? I'll take it. In any case, I was already happy with how things ended, but knowing their licenses are gone? Love it. Have you ever had a company try to take advantage of you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. Every time I go to the grocery store, to be honest. I have to find my own coverage? Alrighty then. About 10 years ago, I got my first job at a nursing home after coming off of active duty military. The director of nursing, who we'll call Dawn, was in the reserves, so we hit it off pretty quick. I got my nursing license while in the military, and I had only really cared for young strapling soldiers, not the elderly. But Dawn and the other nurses taught me the ropes. It was a good place to work. I was able to pick up shifts whenever I needed them. I made some really good friends, and the residents and their family were all pretty great, with the occasional not-so-great ones. Now, when I went off active duty, I enlisted in the reserves. I wasn't quite ready to be fully done with my military career. Drill was always the first weekend of the month. Always. I still made sure the scheduler had a copy of my drill schedule. After a year, Dawn deploys. Enter the interim director of nursing, who we'll call Satan. Karen. She had an issue with me since day one. Not sure why, I never missed work. Took care of my patients like they were family. I had never been in trouble. I just was nowhere near her list of favorites. Within the first 2 months of Karen being there, the scheduler quit. I made sure new scheduler had a copy of my drill schedule. New scheduler was cool. Was able to change us from 8-hour shifts to 12s. Made sure the same nurses worked the same halls for continuity of care. Never had an issue with her. After 3 months, that scheduler quit, along with a few staff. A girl from the front office covered staffing for a few weeks until they were able to fill the position. A nurse transferred from the floor to scheduling. She was a bit scatterbrained, but was good at her job and was not afraid to work the floor when needed. Once again, I made sure she knew when I had drill. She lasted about 4 months. The girl from the office once again stepped in and eventually got the position full-time. I pointed out my drill schedule to her. It was hanging on a bulletin board where the previous girl had put it, and she said she understood. By this point, my patience with Karen was running thin. She found ways to make sure I knew she didn't like me with almost every shift, checking to make sure my med cart was locked 5 to 6 times a day. She never checked other med carts. Go into rooms and push the call light to see how long I took to answer. Once again, only on my hall, and always had snarky comments to make about what she decided I was doing wrong that day. Now, I worked that hall 3 to 4 days a week, 12 plus hours a day. I had that hall down to a science, and I had the best CNAs in the building. They were rock stars. Karen decided that I could handle it and pulled my CNAs during breakfast for dining room duty. I had to do morning med pass, check blood sugars, do insulin on the diabetic residents, toilet them if needed, pass breakfast trays, and feed a few people on my own. I had 34 residents on my hall, and only about 12 of them went to the dining room. I was not happy to say the least, but I found a routine and was able to knock it out. That made Karen try harder to get to me. Then on a beautiful snowy Thursday at the very end of January, the schedule for the rest of the week, weekend, and following week came out. The coming weekend was the first weekend of the month. And what do I always have on the first weekend of the month? Yep, drill. I was still on the schedule for that weekend. Scheduler was nowhere to be found and not answering her phone. I text the nurse who works my hall on days I'm off to see if she could pick up, and I would work for her next weekend. No dice, she was going out of town and couldn't. The scheduler finally texts me and tells me that I never told her that drill was this weekend and had no one to cover my shifts. I told her that I'm willing to trade the weekend with anyone and work their shifts. She texts back that she has no one and that I should have told her about my drill weekend ahead of time. So I went to her office once she got back from wherever she was and as nicely as possible point to the drill schedule hanging on the wall right next to her desk and ask how she couldn't know when it was hanging right next to her. The blood drained from her face and she said she will figure it out. I remind her to tell the other nurses that I will pick up shifts in return if it helps cover it. An hour later, good old Karen comes up to me and lays into me. She tells me I'm irresponsible for not telling the scheduler my drill schedule and that they are not finding coverage for my shifts. I either have to work them or find coverage myself. She asked how she could even be sure I really had drill weekends and wasn't just trying to get out of work, that she should write me up. She would cut me off any time I would open my mouth to speak. Once she said her fill, Karen took off to her office. I'm a pretty laid-back person, and I'm usually very calm. My blood was boiling. I was able to get my shifts covered pretty easily since we were pretty well staffed. The scheduler hadn't even tried, apparently. Well, she tried throwing me under the bus. Drill weekend comes and goes. Monday morning, I bring copies of my DD-214 from the active army, my orders sending me to the reserve unit, about 10 copies of my drill schedule, and printed pic of my drill schedule hanging on the wall next to the scheduler desk. I had already found coverage for the drill weekends I had to work for the next 6 months and even started on finding coverage for the 2-week drill a few months away. After morning med pass, tray pass, feeding, and toileting were finished, I walked into Karen's office, handed her the DD-214 and the orders, told her that there is her proof of my military duty, handed her the pic of the schedule hanging on the wall, told her I should not have to remind them every month, especially when it's hanging next to the scheduler's desk, handed her the 10 drill copies just in case they needed more than one, since that didn't seem to be enough. She just sat there, glaring without saying a word until I put the list of weekends I had already found coverage for in front of her. Then she smirked and said maybe this taught me how to be more responsible. I smiled and told her, oh, absolutely it did, since my time in the service obviously didn't teach me anything, and that I'm sure my soldiers would appreciate her teaching their platoon sergeant such an important lesson. Then I slammed my 2-week notice on her desk and explained to her that what she tried to pull was illegal and that I could have the Department of Justice in there so fast her head would spin. As I walked out of her office, State walked into the building. State audits nursing facilities. They watch everything and go through everything and make life heck for mainly management for a week or two. One of the state auditors ended up being ex-Army. She hung out on my hall just chatting every day I worked. Karen would look at me like a deer in headlights when she walked down my hall. I guess she thought I would purposely get them dinged or something. I was good and just enjoyed her nervousness. I trained my replacement the next week. I went on to the local hospital and I'm still there. Karen went back to corporate once Dawn came back from Iraq. She learned what happened and reported her to corporate for that and some other things. Karen was fired. The scheduler was fired a few months after I left. Turns out her mom, who was a unit manager, was doing her job. Am I the jerk for possibly causing a divorce for my wife's best friend's marriage? My wife, 31 female, and Amy, 32 female, are best friends for about the past 15 years. About 2 months ago, Amy gave birth to a boy. Me, 34 male, and my wife have 4 kids. One who's 3, 2 who are 4, and 1 who's 6. So we've been helping Amy and her husband, Jake, who's 29, because we know how hard and stressful the first few months with a newborn can be, specifically because they are first-time parents. My wife planned a girls' night at our house and invited her friends. She does that once a month. When my wife hosts those nights at our place, I usually go out with some of my friends to a nearby bar. Amy and Jake moved to our city around 1 year ago because Amy wanted to stay close to her parents and she had a better job opportunity in our town. Since they moved here, Jake has no family or friends nearby, except me. So I decided to invite him to come with my other friends to the bar. Jake is very shy and reserved. He doesn't talk a lot, but he's a great guy. When we arrived at the bar, I tried to push Jake a little to interact with the other guys, but his answers were always short and simple, and then I told the rest of the guys that Jake was a first-time father and that his daughter was born 2 months ago. Finally, a conversation that Jake seemed to engage. The other guys in my friend group are a bit older than me, so most of them are parents, and things were going pretty well until a friend told us that the first time he thought, "Holy crap, I'm a dad," was when he cut the cord after his wife gave birth. After hearing this, Jake went a bit silent and said that he wasn't present at the delivery room when his wife gave birth. Then he asked us if that was a big deal, and if he missed a lot not being there. Well, the consensus on the table was that being able to watch our kids being delivered to the world is one of the most important moments in the life of a father, and that yes, he has missed a huge thing, and that he lost one of the hugest milestones in a marriage. After that, Jake went a bit quiet and left shortly after. 2 days later, Jake asks me if he can stay with me for a few days because he needed a bit of space from Amy. Amy called my wife crying, so she went over there to talk to her for a bit. After that, Jake arrived at our home, and that's when he told me that he wanted to be in the delivery room, but with the current restrictions, only one person was allowed, and Amy chose her mom. Apparently, he tried to argue with her, but she was adamant, and in the end, he was not allowed in the birth room. Jake told Amy what he heard at the bar. They got into a big fight, and currently Jake is considering a divorce. Needless to say that Amy is furious at me, and my wife is currently giving me the silent treatment. She said that I probably ended their marriage. I feel really bad with the whole thing, especially with a baby in the middle. Am I the jerk? Edit. Jake is a surgical nurse. He already helped deliver other people's babies. I guess that this adds salt to the wound. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. If they're really getting a divorce over something like this, then their marriage was already doomed. Don't worry, I'm getting a discount either way. Edit 1. I'm Australian. Tips aren't a thing where I'm from. So last night I was looking after my section and there were 2 ladies in probably their mid to late 20s, one with a baby, referenced as choosing beggar from now on, that had just sat down. Unknown to me was the fact that they were occasional regulars. I walk over to their table wondering if they needed any menus, and they didn't need any. Just ordered some fried chicken and chips. This is where it gets juicy. Food came out in about 2 minutes, as there was one already just made in the kitchen, and we were still waiting for a steak to be fully cooked. No big deal, as it's really easy to fry up some chicken and chips in no time. I take out their food, and they are surprised at how fast the food came out. I go back maybe 2 minutes later max and ask how the food is going. This is the following conversation. Choosing beggar. I think something is wrong with our food. Me. Oh, in what way? Well, I don't think our food is fresh enough because it came out so quick. Me. Oh, I can get that one replaced for you if you'd like. Did you have the food pre-made by KFC or something? Because there's no way it could have come out that quick. Me. I can assure you it is fresh and cooked to order. If you would like, I can replace the food, get you something different, or even bring the manager over for you.
Oh, I would like to talk to the manager, just not yet.
Me. I mean, they're literally over there. Points at manager. I'm sure it wouldn't be an issue.
No, I will make sure to talk to them later when I pay.
Me. It would be easier to talk to them now, as
No, I want to talk to them later and get myself a discount.
Firstly, I was taken aback and didn't even know how to react or what to say. The audacity of this jerk, basically. Anyway, I asked if she wanted anything and she didn't, and I walked into the kitchen, explained the situation to the chef, and the kitchen had a good laugh, and we all talked about it to the manager. Choosing beggar proceeds to walk to the front desk, and my manager is there waiting. She proceeds to argue that the food came out too quickly, that it wasn't fresh, and there was no way it couldn't have been KFC. My manager just simply asked, "Did Domestico ask if you wanted the food replaced, swapped for something else, or offer for the manager to come investigate?" She said yes. Manager said there was nothing he could do as company policy was met, and that if there was issues with the food and she didn't want them fixed, no discount could be given. She exploded, paid, and left with the most ticked off face ever. Best part is, she tried to use her baby as an excuse. Am I the jerk for refusing to go on a surprise vacation with my wife's family? You're probably thinking, oh, amazing, a vacation. I wish I could go on one right about now, and you would be right. I would love to go on a vacation, but not this one. I, 30, male, and my wife, 26, female. And if I'm honest, I adore my wife, but I absolutely hate her family. Her mom is a know-it-all who thinks everything is her business. Her sisters are snobs who criticize everything despite being anything but successful themselves. Their kids are spoiled brats. Her dad is just a broken man who seems to have given up decades ago, and the rest of her extended family is pretty much like the rest. Somehow and in some way, my wife got all the good genes and ended up being an extremely sweet, beautiful, caring, empathetic woman. Well, yesterday, my wife decided to surprise me. She prepared a really romantic meal, wine, candles, the whole shebang for me after I got home from work. And she told me we were going on a 3-week-long vacation to a secluded cabin in a great hiking area of my country, given I had to take up my vacation weeks away. I was honestly pretty dang excited. I love hiking. I grew up in a small town with loads of nature and used to hike pretty much daily. I love cabins, and honestly, I really needed the break as my job has been extremely stressful. Shortly after, she revealed with the biggest smile that it would be a huge family vacation with her mom, her dad, her sisters, their kids, and a cousin and her kids, and honestly, my heart just dropped. Trust me, I do my absolute best to stand these people when I see them for the sake of my wife and act like the perfect son-in-law. But the idea of spending my only vacation days in a cabin with these absolutely horrible people is just a full-on no for me. I'd rather stay at home doing nothing for 3 weeks. I've been with them on vacation once, and the entire time it was just them arguing, complaining, and us being forced to take care of her sister's kids half the time. I straight up said that I was not going to do that again, and that she was free to go, but I'm not going. She started crying and seemed extremely upset that I reacted the way I did, despite never hiding how I feel about her family. We ended up arguing a whole bunch, and she ended up leaving to stay with her best friend who lives down the street. Am I being the jerk here? I sure feel bad, but I also feel like this is just legitimately messing up the few weeks a year I get off, and I honestly just want to have some peace and quiet. Just to be clear, she wants to leave the day after tomorrow. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or not? Please let us know. Man tries to steal my shopping cart. This happened to me about a month ago. I was running errands and my final stop was to buy some groceries. I had just gotten off of work and was still in my work uniform, which is a black polo with a big staff across the back and my company's logo on the front of the shirt. Now, I hate walking into stores with a staff shirt on. I'm not a fan of strangers knowing where I work or causing confusion for having a staff shirt on when I don't work at a business. For this reason, if I'm in my work shirt, I'll throw on a jacket or a hoodie before I walk in someplace. This is exactly what I'd done just before I entered the grocery store. So my staff shirt for the place that I do work is completely covered by an oversized varsity jacket with studs and a big tiger across the back, and I have ripped black jeans on. The uniform for the grocery store is green branded t-shirts and khaki pants. I look nothing like the staff there. Because of what's going on right now, when I grab a shopping cart, I stop by the sanitizing station to wipe down the cart before I begin shopping. The sanitizing station is just inside the entrance doors of the grocery store. As I'm finishing up wiping down my shopping cart, another shopper walks in, a man with a baseball cap on. The man sees me cleaning a shopping cart, walks up to me and says, "Oh, great, thanks," and tries to grab the front of the cart and walk away. Not understanding yet that he thought I worked there, I think he's trying to steal it from me and had a vice grip on the back of the cart, which causes him to stumble. He whips his head back around and goes, "What do you?" before cutting off mid-sentence and actually looking at me, in my ripped skinny jeans and my tiger varsity jacket, and my judging eyes. He then quietly says, "Oh, you don't work here," before immediately turning around and walking away into the grocery store without a cart of his own. As I watched him walk away, finally realizing that he thought I was cleaning the cart for him, I see him pulling his baseball hat low down on his head in shame. He then stood in the distance by a soda display, hat low, and turns to face the shopping cart section, no doubt waiting for me to leave the area. I chuckled as I walked away to do my shopping, and when I was finally a safe distance away, I did catch him out of the corner of my eye slowly approach the carts again, shake his head slightly, and grab one. It's alright, man. We all make mistakes. I work here, but not for you. So I've worked for Company 2 for about 3 years, and our main job is putting down fancy-looking stone blocks for high-end commercial buildings. About 2 years ago, they moved me over to one of the local multi-million-pound house because they needed more manpower. The job was taken on by Company 1, and Company 2 was brought on as a contractor for the outer block work and tiles. Most of the work was finished when I started on that site, but the buyer was meticulous with pointing out problems, so most of the jobs we did were replacing old damaged stuff. The tolerance for all the block work was 1 millimeter, as per the contract that Company 1 signed. For anyone not familiar with construction, this is an insane tolerance to work around, and led to some hilarious stories, which maybe we'll talk about if people are interested. A little more context. Since this is a private building and technically a finished house, we didn't have hard hats, steel boots, or jackets on, so nothing to really identify ourselves. We basically know everyone on site by name. 2 years down the line, and I'm one of 2 people from Company 2 on the site. Enter the big wigs. One of the main reasons why this job was going so wrong was the fact they had management for management's management. Stuff got so disconnected that the site management didn't even come down to look at what was going on, and they didn't know us. The directors of Company 1 came down to look at the job with some upper managers, presumably see how much longer this job was going to take. I was doing some grouting for a tile that I had just replaced when the boomers walk in and demanded I go clean up a mess in the other room. I presume they thought I was a laborer since I'm young looking and I had a brush in my hand. They walk off before I get a chance to say anything. I ignore them and carry on with my work, since it's not my job to clean up after anyone other than myself. 20 minutes later, I've moved on to a broken tile in the room they asked me to clean out when the boomers walk in on me. They straight look at me for 5 seconds, open mouth, while I move their equipment from one side of the room to the other. This is where the fun begins. We've got upper managers, we've got the director, we've got the supervisor, we've got the site manager, and me. Director: "What the heck are you doing? I asked you to go clean that crap up. Why the heck are you just moving it to the other side of the room? Are you being funny with me, kid? Do you even want a job?" Me: "I don't." Director: "No, you've done enough talking. I've seen how long your breaks are. Just move it out, now." Me, raising my voice: "Look, I don't work for your company. I work for Company 2. Look, I know you don't work for us, but can you just clean it out anyways?" Me: "No, that's not my job." "I've heard enough. You're fired." By this point, director is red-faced mad. Me: You can't fire me. If you want someone else from Company 2, you'll have to call my boss. I can get you the number." Upper manager: "Oh, so now you're trying to be smart, are you? Get the heck off my site." I just pack my stuff and leave. I know he doesn't have the authority to kick me off site. Only the site manager can, and he wasn't even there on site. But it's not worth the hassle. All the while, director is berating me on how I'm a terrible laborer. I'm packing up my tools, and he stops me from leaving, accusing me of stealing stuff. But after I show him they've all got my name on them, he lets me leave. Somehow it didn't set off alarm bells that I have masonry tools. Would you believe they meet me down the path while I'm driving down to jeer at me and tell me how useless I am? Very professional. I drive down the road and park up to call my boss. I tell him the whole situation and how I've been kicked off site. He just laughs and tells me he'll be down in 10 minutes. I can take the day off. I get a phone call about 2 hours later telling me that it's been sorted out, but not to go back yet. He told the management that if they want to kick one of his staff off site, that they need to call him. He'll still be invoicing me out to their company, but won't be sending me back until I get a letter of apology for the way they treated me. 2 days later, I'm called into the main office to have a look at the letter that came in. It was a small victory, but it tasted sweet. He gave me a copy to keep and framed his own. I started work that day and got an apology from the site manager and supervisor who assured me this won't happen again. Rumors started circulating, but nobody really knew what happened until I came back to tell them and show them the letter. We laughed about it for a few weeks.
Karen snatches a burger right off my sister's plate. My aunt, who we will call Karen, was visiting my grandparents a few years ago. At the time, my little sister, who was 12 at the time, was very sick and couldn't eat properly for months. Don't worry, thank God she's all good now. So the minute that my poor parents and her finally got out of the hospital, the first thing they did was visit Granny's house for some good home-cooked food. After all they had eaten was gross hospital food for so long, they stayed with little sister the whole time. My granny was amazing as always. She made a ton of burgers and tasty homemade food just for them. After so many months at the hospital without any decent sleep, they slept on chairs near my sister, and without any normal meal nor a good bath, they finally could eat at home. They were just about to start eating when she came in. Enter my aunt, Karen. Karen. What? Granny, I made them for everyone. Sit down and eat. Karen ignores Granny, pointing at my little sister's burger. What is that? Why didn't you give my son much meat like you give to that girl? My dad. There's a lot, Karen. Here, you want my piece? Karen, while looking menacingly at my dad, measured the 2 pieces of meat in her eyes and then comes to Granny. After all I give to you, after all I have done to you, she pointed at my little sister's burger and then her son's burger. You give my little prince less meat than them? When do they ever help you like me? You probably know she's entitled and lying by now. She gets money from the rest of the family to help Granny and Grandpa, and she's still taking things from their house in return. My mom and dad help Granny and Grandpa always and never ask for anything in return. Granny, just sit down and eat. There's a lot of food. You want me to give grandson another piece? Karen, no! How dare you give this girl more meat than my son? After all I've done for you. At this point, she straight up grabbed my sister's burger and put it on her 5-year-old son's plate. My granny got so mad she started screaming, while my dad and my little sister died out of laughter inside. We're pretty much used to Karen in the family. In the end, her poor 5-year-old son, of course, couldn't finish both huge burgers. My granny gave my little sister another burger. My dad just laughed all the way home. So, in a way, Karen kinda cheered them up after being at the hospital for so long. Her being overly annoying because of a piece of meat that she proceeded to steal the rest of it after lunch, becoming a running gag in our family. Speaking of burgers, what's your favorite place to get burgers from? Please let us know. 5 Guys for the win, bruh. Outdoor recess really isn't that important to me. Background. I went to a Catholic school that had the traditional uniform. White shirt, plaid skirt. Our uniform rules were strict about everything. Shoe color, sock color, jewelry, etc. And in those rules, we were not permitted to wear leggings, nor sweatpants. Yoga pants weren't a thing back then, but they'd have been out of the question too. So when winter rolled around, we were cold, like all the time. The school was a big old marble and limestone monstrosity, so it was drafty and chilly, and we were just cold. To this day, I'm still always cold when I shouldn't be, and I wonder if years of being too cold just set in somehow. Anyhow, onto the story. Guess what else is cold in winter? Outdoor recess. What evil jerk of a man thought it was a good idea to force us to play outside in the cold without protective layers is beyond me, but that was the school policy. The boys got pants and blazers, so they were always warm enough, though they might catch a chill. And yes, we could take our jackets, but imagine being outside in a winter coat and a knee-length skirt. The coat was only helping so much. While the boys played, we girls would huddle next to the sewer grates and storm drains in the area, trying to stay warm by the steam. Or if a delivery truck was on campus, we'd lean against the engine to leach some of the heat. I don't know how the faculty could watch this and just not care, but they never did.
Edit. We did have indoor recess, but only if there was precipitation. And I don't mean expected bad weather. I mean there had to be something actively falling from the sky when they flung the doors open. If it just finished snowing 2 inches before we went out, too bad. If it had started raining 5 minutes after it started, too bad. Then we got to 5th grade, and they wanted to teach us responsibility. This meant not just grades affected when we missed homework, but punishments as well. I wasn't aware of the new rules until I missed my first homework assignment. I don't remember why I didn't do it, just that it was an honest mistake. Maybe I left the book I needed at school. Maybe I forgot we had an assignment. I don't know. But the first case was totally accidental. So I came to class and didn't have my homework assignment. The teacher tells me to see her after class. Okay. She tells me, per the class contract I signed at the beginning of the year, since I didn't do my assignment, I have to stay late and eat lunch when everyone else has already gone out to recess, thereby missing recess. I was bummed, but oh well, that's what I got for messing up. But then I served my punishment, and it was great. Everyone was done eating, so there was no line in the cafeteria. The lunch ladies were just packing up and felt kind of bad for me, so a few of them asked if I wanted anything extra. I found a seat in the entirely empty cafeteria and realized it was nice to eat in silence instead of the cacophony of hundreds of other students. Still, lunch and recess were our only real chance to socialize all day, and I wanted to catch friends I didn't have any morning classes with, so I asked the teacher in charge of lunch detention if I could go outside, since technically the punishment was late lunch, not missing recess, per the rule book. She declined and said that the late lunch was a means to take away recess as a punishment, so I had to stay in the whole time. Okay, I get it. I'm the one who messed up. And that was that, or so I thought. I spent the next couple months being a diligent student and turning in my assignments, but then the weather began to turn cold. Our recess conversations began to tilt to the same topic they did every year. Who had found a new source for thicker tights than we had worn last year? We had gotten quite creative, and though we hated the look, most of us had a giant stash of cable knit tights. Think of a knit sweater for your legs. The problem with knitted wear is the holes though. So though we looked warm, we still froze. Then one day I missed another assignment and the same punishment ensued, and I had an idea. If I just didn't do my homework anymore, I'd get lunch detention every day, and I wouldn't have to go outside in the cold. I'm a genius. So I stopped doing my homework in my class with the nicest teacher. I'm not entirely stupid, but I was in 5th grade, so not smarter than the adults around me yet. After like 3 days, the teacher pulls me aside and says if I don't have my homework tomorrow, she's calling my mom. Crap. Next day I have my homework for that class, but I skip another, and that gives me an idea. The rules say that if I miss my homework in any class, I get lunch detention that day, unless it's already after lunch, and then the detention applies to the next day. So I'm careful about which classes I skip the work in. I can stagger my missed assignments enough that the teachers will just think I'm flaky, but not doing this on purpose. So that's what I do. Some days I miss a morning assignment, so I get detention that lunch. Other days I'll miss both a morning and afternoon assignment, so that covers lunch that day and the next. 4 classes in the morning, 4 afternoon classes. I could stagger and just randomize just enough. I kept this up for about a month or so when the teachers must have started comparing notes, or the lunch detention crew began to wonder why I was always in trouble. I wasn't sure what flagged the system, but Mom got called. Why isn't Voodoo Daughter doing her homework? Is something going on at home that we should know about? Is she under any stress we haven't been informed of? Is she struggling with any subjects? Remember, posh private school. They want to be seen as caring, just not about us freezing. So Mom sits me down. Why aren't you doing your homework? And I explain to her about being cold, about how the punishment of a quiet, late, solitary lunch with a good book in the warm cafeteria is way better than a loud lunch followed by a cold recess that I never really got warm from for the rest of the day. I explained to her my system and that I was still getting good grades on my tests. I understood the subjects and I wasn't skipping things I needed to work on, but I didn't see how there was a downside. I was doing less work, but maintaining my grades. I got to stay warm. I, an introvert, got to eat in a quiet space for my meal, and the school was unwilling to offer any alternatives. Gotta give Mom credit. Not only did she admit that I made complete sense, she told me she was proud of me. They had created the system and the rules. I had disagreed with them, found a way to live within their system and get everything I wanted. Here I was, 10 years old, and I was navigating bureaucracy better than most adults. She called the school and insisted on an in-person meeting with my principal and my homeroom teacher. She basically laid it all out. Mom, my daughter says that she and her friends were reprimanded when they tried to wear leggings and sweatpants outside to recess. Is this correct? Principal stammers. I thought we were here to discuss homework issues. Mom, we'll get to that. Apparently, they get very cold during recess. Is that correct? Principal. Well, yes. Mom. So I just want to get this on record. My daughter was willing to sit in this cold building all day in your dress code and only violated it when she was outside in the freezing winter temperatures, and you decided that her health wasn't as important as your dress code? Principal. Well, they're outside, you see. Anyone driving by can see the schoolyard, and to have all of them out there wearing whatever. Mom. Like all their bright, colorful, puffy winter jackets they're already wearing on top? Principal. It's our policy to teach these ladies to look like ladies, to prepare them for adulthood. Mom. So you refuse to change your dress code policy so they can stay warm? Principal. Yes, I'm sorry. That won't be changing. Mom. Then my daughter won't be doing her homework. Shocked looks. She doesn't want to go outside, but if she does her homework and asks to stay in, you tell her no. When she goes outside, you won't let her wear warm clothes. So she stopped doing her homework because it's the only way she can find that you'll allow her to stay warm. I fully support her system. Mom then explained my system to them, and how if they weren't willing to change the rules, I was going to continue to abide by their rules, and there was nothing they could do about it. I wasn't failing any classes. I wasn't hurting anyone or disrupting other students. I was just enjoying something that was meant to be a deterrent, and they had no idea how to handle it. She told them that she couldn't think of one good reason I should comply and do my homework. If it was getting me nothing but benefits and zero drawbacks, then what reason did I have to keep up with my homework? The principal was stunned. You mean that right here in my office, you're giving your daughter permission to not do her homework? My mom turned to me and said, if you keep your grades up and you let me review your system and I approve of how often you're missing each class, you have my blessing to skip homework. Just enough to stay indoors for recess. No abusing the system. It's a stupid rule, and I'm proud of you for finding a solution. She looked back at the principal. Does that answer your question? The principal looked back, stunned, but said nothing, eventually nodding and letting us go. After all, what could they really do about it? That's kind of it for the main story, but there's more for those who like a good long read. I kept up my routine for another few days, and that's when one of the lunch monitor teachers came over and told me if I could eat a little faster, she'd let me run out and play with the other kids. I thought that was odd, but told her, no thanks, I actually prefer it in here to out there. She looked bummed, but didn't say anything. Then, like 2 minutes later, she chimed in again, and I knew who had ratted me out. Well, you see, hun, if you're in here on detention every day, I have to be in here with you to make sure you're not misbehaving. And that means I don't get to go outside with the other teachers and chat. Every day, one of us has to stay in here with you and miss out on the one time of day we all get to socialize. So, I'll make you a deal. If you eat quick and hurry out there, you can still get a few minutes of recess and I can chat with the other teachers. Aha! So that's what got me pinched. Now, I wasn't just annoyed, I was upset. They called my mom and got me a conference with the principal, all so they could have their lunchtime gossip session. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, you can go and play with your friends when you change the dress code or the weather gets warmer. Just cold, emotionless. To this day, I get shivers thinking about the way I delivered that line to her. She backed away and didn't bring it up again. When I told my genius mom about the incident that evening, she laughed and suggested I explain my system to the other girls I knew also hated being cold. I didn't understand the gleam in her eye at the time. I was only 10 after all. But I did tell my friends what was up, as I had been keeping it a secret to stay out of trouble. But now that my mom and the school knew, why hide it from my friends? So I told all the girls I usually hung out with about why I kept missing homework and staying in for recess. Before I knew it, we had a small indoor recess group. All of us rotating through skipping homework just enough to keep us inside every day. This went on all winter until the weather warmed up and we were happy to go outside again. The next year, when things got cold again, I was pulled aside and asked if I thought an indoor recess option might suit some students, and that if we could keep the volume down, we were welcome to stay in the cafeteria after lunch while others went outside. Wow, you're still reading this? Okay, last bit. The second year was much the same, only we didn't have to skip homework. We were just allowed to stay inside if we wanted to. On warm days, no one did, but on cold days, all the girls would stay inside and the boys would be outside. Yay for blazers and pants. Normally we were separated, so the only time the boys got to see us was at recess. It wasn't long before they were complaining that the girls never came outside for recess, but they didn't always want to be inside. And it was stupid that the dress code even kept the girls who liked outdoor stuff inside because they'd rather be warm. By the time we reached 7th grade, they reworked the entire uniform. We had summer and winter uniforms. We could now wear pants and button-down shirts in winter months, and they even designed us school sweaters so we could stay warm. And that is the story of how my little 10-year-old self changed the entire uniform code at a 100-years-old private school. Entitled parent demands a free painting and flips out when I refuse. Okay, so for a little context, I am a high school student in my junior year, and I've won various awards for my oil paintings. Some of my works are displayed in local galleries as well, and I take commissions, which vary in price depending on the type of painting they want. Most of my patrons request biblical paintings, since I am best at painting in a Renaissance Baroque style, and I love to paint scenes with lots of movement. That being said, I also paint a lot of portraits of families, local politicians, etc. Basically, if you pay me, I will paint anything. This all happened before all the craziness started, and I was displaying some of my work at my school's art fair. Basically, the district rented a huge auditorium where various schools would display their best work, and then auction it off for charity. It was a fun event, and a surprising amount of people showed up. Now, here's where it starts. I had about 5 or 6 paintings on display. Most of them were depictions of Greek myths/stories, with a few exceptions being a painting of Jesus' crucifixion and a painting of my girlfriend as a goddess, which she is. I had some business cards that my dad had gotten for me, which had some of my info just in case people wanted to commission me, along with a pamphlet of my prices and such. In comes the entitled parent with her baby and a carrying thingy. I don't know what they're called. They look like baskets. I'm sure you've seen one before. I must say, the baby looked pretty new. Their face was all swollen and they looked pretty small. Why would she bring a newborn baby to a crowded area with lots of noise? I don't know. But hey, I'm not a baby expert. She grabbed a business card and examined it, then looked back at my paintings. Entitled parent. Hey, these are pretty good. Obviously nowhere near as good as the old masters, but a pretty close second, I guess. Though for a 16-year-old, they're pretty good. Me. Oh, thanks, I guess. I've been painting for a pretty long time, and I'm glad that people enjoy my stuff. I appreciate the compliment. Oh, I see you do commissions. How much for one of me and my baby? Me. Well, it depends what you want. What did you have in mind? Maybe us laying in a field or something. I don't know, something cute. Me. Oh, I can do that. What size did you have in mind? Entitled parent points to the Jesus painting, which was 16 by 20, so a standard medium-ish painting. Me. Okay, well, for 2 people, normally it would be about $200, but since your baby is not a grown adult, I can make it $125. What? That's ridiculous. Why are you charging so much for a painting anyways? Me. Well, usually a painting that size takes me about 20 hours at least, and the paint that I use is pretty expensive too. Not counting the canvas or paint mediums that can be pretty pricey too. I don't care about that stuff. Why can't you just do it for free, huh? I am a single mother, and I really want this painting done. At this point, I am floored. She's asking for 20+ hours of work for free when I have school on top of it? Me. Sorry, I don't think I can do that for you. It's just not worth my time. I have school to balance as well. I am a single mother, and you are telling me to pay $100 for this trash? Do you have no heart? I have to work so hard to provide for my daughter. I can't believe that you could be so heartless. At this point, she's yelling at me pretty loudly. Her baby is surprisingly still sound asleep. The couple I was talking to earlier comes to my defense. The girl. If you work so hard, then you would understand that doing hours of work for no pay is not worth it. The guy. Yeah, if you work 20 hours and then didn't get your paycheck, you'd be pretty angry, huh? Entitled parent. That isn't the same thing. She is a high school student. She doesn't need the money. She can spare a few hours for me. Me. What? No, I can't. I am not giving you a painting for free. End of story. Either pay for it or leave. She gets red in the face at this point. She is seething in anger. You little jerk. I can't believe how rude you are. You don't even care that I work so hard. Me. You're right, I don't. Now if you aren't going to commission me, then can you please leave? You're making a scene when I have been nothing but nice to you." "Fine, I will leave." She then walked up to one of my paintings and took it off the wall. Her baby wakes up and starts to cry, probably from all the noise. She begins to shush her baby and speed walks towards the exit, but not before a man, who I assume is a teacher or something, grabs her arm and attempts to take the painting back. She puts the baby carrier on the floor and attempts to wrestle it out of the guy's hands. They fumble for a while, yelling at each other while struggling with the painting. I should probably note at this point that the painting didn't have a frame or any protective glass over it. I probably should have done that, but it was too late. She ripped the painting out of his hand and smashed it against the floor like a hard rock singer in his guitar. Wood went flying everywhere. People were screaming at her. I was crying because I don't know how to handle my emotions. She turned back to me, sweaty and red. "See what happens when you are a rude little jerk? Bad things. I hope you've learned your lesson." At this point, I didn't respond. I'm on the floor crying near my painting that I had put so much work into. The wood had pierced the canvas, and now there was a huge hole in the middle of the painting. Entitled parent gets dragged out of the venue as various teachers and other students try to comfort me. Eventually, I calm down a little and the event goes on. I did get about 5 commissions, so I guess it wasn't all bad. But I'm still furious about what happened. I'm just glad that I never get to see her again. Am I the jerk for going to my mom's house after my fiance brought his nieces to our special dinner? I, female 26, have been with my fiance for 2 years. His family all have kids, and they made it a habit to dump their kids at his apartment so he could watch them. It's worth noting that he works too, but his family obviously doesn't care. He said he's been doing it for 5 years, and it hasn't changed once we got engaged. His brother brings his kids to my fiance's place 5 days a week, and despite me saying no, his brother didn't stop. Then his female cousin brings her 2 kids over, she's divorced, and have my fiance watch them. The apartment is always a mess. We don't go out because of me having to take part in watching the kids. He won't even ask them for money. Last month, the kids broke a valuable item that cost me money, and I had to get a replacement. And that's without mentioning my mental health. And this is the reason I'm seriously considering not having kids, despite the fact that my fiance loves them, which is nice, but I'm seriously hating it. Seeing how exhausting this has become, I asked my fiance if we could go out for a romantic dinner, since the kids are around most of the day, and we don't get to have quality time and talk about stuff. He agreed and told me he will meet me at the restaurant after he got off work. I got dressed and was hoping for some quiet time with a nice meal and enjoying the evening. My fiance was 15 minutes late. I called him 3 times, but then stopped, thinking he was driving and couldn't answer. After a while, I hear some noise. Then I saw his 3 nieces, 9, 6, and 12, walking in with my fiance. I was stunned. I could see his face already saying sorry. He sat the kids at our table and said that his brother had an emergency and went to cover a shift. He works with law enforcement, and his wife, a nurse, was covering a 12-hour shift. Said that he couldn't say no to him because his parents' house would take more driving time. He apologized and said he would make it up for me, but it felt hopeless at this point. I was so mad, but I didn't want to say anything offensive in front of the kids. I so wanted to get up and just leave after he took the kids' orders and just kept talking to them all the time. The kids started getting louder, and I had to tell them to quiet down every 5 minutes. I waited till they finished eating, and I was so tired of having to babysit his nieces. The 12-year-old was so rude and talked about my dress. I insisted on going to my mom's house so the kids can stay at his place. He threw a tantrum, not wanting me to leave him alone, but I ignored him and left. He called, saying that he had a terrible night having to watch the kids alone and that I shouldn't have left, and is calling me ridiculous after I told him to fix this because I was going to stay for a few more days at my mom's house. Edit to mention that I had already made it clear to his brother that we will no longer be watching his kids, but he keeps bringing them over and completely ignoring and disrespecting my wishes. Basically, just expecting us to be okay with this, like he's the only one who has commitments. Well, what would you do in this situation? Do you agree with OP or not? Please let us know. Sounds like she's getting a little more than she bargained for. I don't work here and counter turns creepy. This happened to me a few years ago, not too long after I moved to my current neighborhood. I was working 2 jobs and just got out of one of them. I was wearing a coat from my full-time job, a very bright blue fleece with the agency's logo embroidered on the left side, zipped up with khaki slacks and a bright pink polo shirt. Yeah, our uniforms were a hot mess. I went to the local grocery store that at the time, the uniform was a primary blue polo. black apron or smock. It happened to be a rare evening off for my second job. Same grocery store company, different location, and I was picking up a few groceries for dinner and a celebratory snack for having the night off, aka ice cream. I was examining the SpaghettiOs, don't judge me, when this guy comes towards me. I gave that Midwestern polite half smile as I moved my cart, with my big old purse sitting on top, to the side and nodded for him to pass so I could examine the offerings of gourmet canned pasta. Again, don't judge me. Once I moved over, I turned toward the shelf, not looking at him. Him. Where's the taco stuff? Me, looking up in surprise. I don't know. I think I saw an employee in the next aisle over. Him, looking disgusted. Don't give me that. You know what you're doing. I know you stock it here. Where's the taco stuff? Me. I really don't know. Him, getting impatient and rolling his eyes. Look, I know you're not stupid. Where's the dang taco stuff? Me. I don't work here. Go ask an employee. I don't want to ask an employee. I'm asking you. Now, where's the taco stuff? Frantically, I look around. I saw people at either end of the aisle, and as soon as they saw a large 6-foot man screaming at me, a smaller woman, they all noped out of there right quick. Fortunately, we were both in view of the aisle signs right above our head. I looked up, turned around, and pointed. Me. See? Taco, right there, on the sign, next aisle over. Now go away and stop bothering me. Him, grinning, body language immediately switching from imposing to sleazy. See? Now was that so hard? You should try to smile more. Did you know you're cute when you get angry? He looks me up and down. You know, if I weren't married, I'd see if I could take you out for dinner. Me, recoiling inside with disgust. He laughed as he went away to wherever he came from. I'm ashamed to say that I grabbed my gourmet pasta and practically ran to the registers. I didn't get to the other treats I'd planned to pick up that evening. At that time, I didn't have a lot of confidence, and my ex-husband was making sure of that. We were in the process of a divorce, and he is a master at gaslighting, so this experience really threw me off. Had this happened a lot more recently, there are so many more things I could do, like point to signs, shout, make a scene, put him in his place, etc. I think this guy just saw me as an easy target and went for it, especially once he discovered his mistake. Am I the jerk for telling my wife to step up as a mother? So I, 33 male, had been married to my wife, 31 female, for 6 years. 2 years ago, we adopted our 2 kids, girl who's 7 and boy who's 5, from Haiti. They were toddlers when we brought them home, so we had never really been through the newborn stage. Well, my wife and I decided to have a biological baby. She's currently 5 months old. Well, when she was born, my wife decided she needed to make up for all the lost time that she was pregnant, and in doing so, kinda left all the childcare on me. My wife loves the baby and cuddles with her, but the second she starts crying, my wife hands her over to me. She knows how to change her, but she believes it isn't her job. It was never something we agreed upon, like some weird deal where we agreed she would carry the baby for 9 months and I would raise it. We formula feed, which I prefer, but I can't leave her home alone with the baby. Basically, yesterday I had to take my 7-year-old to a soccer game. I left my wife with the baby and she was just sleeping in her crib. My wife called me mid-game and screamed at me about leaving the baby with her. She said that she needed to be changed and I had to come back home and clean it up. I asked if she knew how to do it. She used to be a full-time nanny, and she said yes, but it's not her job. I drove back home, changed the baby, and took her back to the soccer game. By the time I came back, there were only about 10 minutes left. One of the other moms told me that my daughter had been switched to center midfield and scored 3 times in a row and basically won for her team. I was so proud. When she was done, she asked why the baby was here, and I said I had to go pick her up. Then she asked if I had seen her while she was center mid, and I told her the truth. She was so upset and wouldn't talk to me. I, of course, didn't badmouth my wife to her. I offered to go get her ice cream, but she wasn't in the mood. When we got back home, I heard her crying to my wife. I obviously don't mind her venting to my wife, but my wife was saying things like, "Yeah, he shouldn't have done that," and "I'm so sorry he treated you like that," even though I told her on the phone that I was going to miss part of the game if I came and picked the baby up. My wife and I got in an argument later. I told her that she actually has to care for the baby, and she basically called me selfish and lazy. We go to a marriage counselor. We don't have many problems in our marriage, but we had to do it for the adoption, and we ended up sticking with it, as well as our own therapists. The marriage counselor has ruled out postpartum, and she has suggested for my wife to do more with the baby, but she doesn't want to. Here's where I am definitely the jerk. She said, "Stop acting like you're my slave or something." I then snapped back, "Well, you need to step up as a parent." I know I'm the jerk for saying that to her, but am I the jerk for genuinely thinking it? Edit 1. Her therapist is technically called a psychiatrist, and I'm pretty sure they can make a diagnosis, but correct me if I'm wrong. 2. I meant we didn't have problems when we started counseling. Edit. I made it up to my daughter. I messaged all of the moms I knew and was able to find someone who got a video of her scoring. I showed her and she was happy. We're having a late celebration at McDonald's in case anyone cares. Edit 3. I put this in a comment, but she was raised by a single father. It's not really my information to share why though. Edit 4. Sorry if I can't get to all your comments. I turned off my notifications for like 3 hours and my inbox currently says 156. Well, what would you do in this situation? Do you agree with OP or his wife? Please let us know. I told Karen my world doesn't revolve around her. I'm 29, female, and my husband's sister, who's 35, female, and I used to have a good relationship. She was always kind to me when I was young. Husband and I are high school sweethearts. 4 years ago, everything changed between us. I suffered 7 pregnancy losses, including 2 that were just off the mark for being considered stillbirths, but I still count them. After the last one, I shut down and did not recover easily. I was depressed and I isolated myself. She had a baby 3 weeks before my last pregnancy loss. 4 days later, she was having a baby naming party and we were supposed to go, had planned to go, but after the loss, I just couldn't, and neither could my husband. He sent on the word and was talking to his sister. She said she understood and sympathized with my husband, but the next time she saw me again, she was cold. And then she told me she was hurt I hadn't shown up and made her baby party about me and my loss. She said I should have been there to support her. My husband had a huge fight with her over this and they ended up estranged. Then I found out I was pregnant early this year. It was a huge, nerve-wracking surprise. We were a mix of emotions. We had given up trying, but my babies hung in there and they were born 2 weeks ago. I'm still in shock. I still can't believe it. I'm a mom to babies after losing all of them before. After giving up hope of it happening with biological kids. She came over with a gift Monday while my husband was at work, and she told me I didn't deserve a gift when I wasn't at her last baby party and made it all about me. She asked why her? Why her baby party? Why wasn't I thinking of her? She told me I was selfish and should have considered how she would feel and how she was grieving too, but she needed to get on with it, and I should have put her first that one time. I told her calmly that my world did not revolve around her and she should leave my home. I also told her I never asked for a gift. She was free to take it if she felt that way. My husband is upset at his sister again. His sister's saying I was a jerk to say it when I was already in the wrong. I don't think so, but maybe I should have just asked her to leave. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you agree with? OP or her sister-in-law? Please let us know. Her sister-in-law sounds like a real piece of work. Stiff me on my bonus? That's going to cost you. Many moons ago, 1999, I started work as a pub manager for a successful independent pub, decent salary, and even better profit-related bonus scheme. The owner had just bought an old bank with a large car park in an ideal location for a large gastropub just on the outskirts of the town center. It was in the direct footpath between the train and bus stations and the main bar area, so its footfall would be excellent. Over the course of the next 12 months, I worked excessive hours running the one pub whilst helping him design and set up the new pub. It was fun and rewarding, both financially and emotionally. The design of the gastropub was excellent. It was Oriental themed with an open plan kitchen, so the customers could see the chefs working, and as the owner had an Oriental girlfriend, all the chefs were from her extended family. This point is key to the revenge. We opened with a bang, and the place was a roaring success, far busier than we had dared to hope, and the initial new opening buzz just never died. We just kept getting busier and busier, and I was working 7 days, 80+ hours a week between the two pubs. We had to employ a second manager to run the first pub and ship even more of her extended family over to work in the kitchen. By the end of the first year, my bonus was close to double my salary. In fairness to the owner, he worked more than I did, and I got on really well with him. Then he did me over. He married his girlfriend, and she and I had never really got on very well, but she left me to do my job whilst she mainly looked after the kitchen side of things. The owner bought a brand new top-spec Porsche, and the wife got a new top-spec Merce. I bought myself a Suzuki motorbike. All was going well until it came to my yearly bonus time. I was expecting it to be a lot less than the last year, what with the additional manager and that we were no longer running so short-staffed. But it was drastically worse. By my calculations, it was almost 15,000 pounds short. I just checked. That's about 25,000 pounds nowadays. I, of course, queried this with the owner. It turned out that the company had bought the Porsche and the Merce as company vehicles, and that was above the line for my bonus calculation on the P&L. They had also messed up some major capital investment expenses into the repairs line, also above the profit line. I was not happy to say the least, but since we worked so well together, I thought he'd be open to sorting it out somehow. But his wife stepped in and even went as far as to say if they could have lowered my bonus even more, then they would have, as I wasn't worth it. My personal life was in tatters, and I'd been thinking about moving on anyway. All the money in the world isn't worth it if you work so much you ruin relationships. So I handed in my notice on the spot. This suited the wife perfectly. She made me hand over my keys and said I'd get my pay in lieu of notice, owed holiday pay, etc. But I wasn't to ever set foot in either of their pubs ever again. I was barred for life. Cue the revenge. The problem with treating someone who knows the exact ins and outs of your business with such disregard is that they know all the ways you have been breaking the law. Those chefs you brought over to work but never bothered to get visas for because it's too much trouble and too expensive? Be a crying shame if someone called immigration to let them know. Those company vehicles that were never used for company business? Be a crying shame if someone called the tax office to let them know. The messing around with the P&L to reduce the pre-tax profit? Be a crying shame if someone called the tax office with the details of what to look for. Those cash-in-hand staff you employed so you didn't have to pay NICS? Be a crying shame if someone called the tax office to let them know. For good measure, I also rang the local EHO. I wasn't sure as I didn't deal with the kitchen, but I was pretty sure they were breaking some of the hygiene laws. I know for a fact COSHH was broken as it was always the cheapest cleaning chemicals she could find, so we never had data sheets. The fallout was epic. It hit the local press and the pub was closed for almost 4 months. I have no idea how much they got fined, but it had to be far more than my bonus would have been. Have you ever had a boss that did you wrong? And if so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I just want to know if their food was any good. Crazy dog owner abandons her dog in a shop for hours. We shall call the subject of this story Jerk. So this happened earlier this year, just before lockdown, which is lucky for Jerk, or they might have been charged with a crime. I work in a shop that sells hardware and doesn't have an issue with people bringing their dogs in. I personally love dogs and don't have one, so take every opportunity for a bit of a cuddle. So I'm on my own in the shop one day when Jerk comes in to discuss some work she had asked us to carry out for her. She's got her 2 dogs with her. One is a big lab, X, and the other is a small terrier of some sort. I coo over the dogs, and we get to discussing her job requirements. Once that's done, we chat for a while about dogs, and all is well. Whilst we're chatting, she spots something in the shop that she likes and wants to buy. I give her a price, and she says she has no cash and needs to go home and get some. I don't live far, she says. Just then the phone rings, so I answer, and while I'm talking to the caller, she plonks the small dog on the counter and tells me that it's too tired to walk any further, and asks if I can look after it while she goes to get the money. I grudgingly agree because A, I can't really argue while I'm still trying to talk to the other customer on the phone, and B, she doesn't live far. Remember these words. So off she goes. 15 minutes later, I'm now holding the little dog who, getting a little stressed at the disappearance of Jerk, keeps making a break for the door. Another 5 minutes go by and no sign of her. Then another 10 and still nothing. So I poke my head out of the door to see if she's walking down the road. Nope, nothing. I wait and wait. An hour after she's left, it's approaching closing time. Here I am on a Friday afternoon with a virtual stranger's whimpering dog in my arms. I couldn't put it down because we're on a busy road, and it made a beeline for the door as soon as I did. All through this, I had other customers come in, and I had to perch the dog on the counter while I served them. One lady even had to hold the dog for me whilst I carried out her order. So I tried to call Jerk's phone. No answer. Leave a message. Another half hour goes by and nothing. I try the phone again and nothing. Finally, on the 3rd try, she answers, and I ask her when she's going to be back, as she was just popping home to get some cash. Oh, sorry, she says. When I got home, I needed to help my elderly neighbor with some gardening. I'm on my way. Great, I think. Won't be long now. Just then, my boss arrives back from his works out on site and asks why the heck I'm holding a small dog and who the heck does it belong to. I explain the situation and he's calm but not particularly happy. He also tells me that Jerk actually lives about 45 minutes away. Fantastic. Eventually, 5 minutes after closing time, just as I was making plans to take the dog home for the weekend, Jerk wanders in the door. Not a care in the world. No apology, nothing. I just want to get rid of her and get home, so I'm polite but not friendly. I hand the dog over and try to hustle her out the door. My boss, on the other hand, does not like people who do things like this, so he tells her that he has given me a verbal warning because I agreed to look after the dog and it was her fault. He hadn't, but she didn't know that. She goes nuts. I mean, like from calm and smiling to crazy in 2 seconds flat. She starts screeching about what a jerk he is. She rants and raves, flinging insults at us like a monkey throws things at the zoo, and eventually she storms out. My boss watches her, then calmly closes and locks the door. 10 seconds later, she's back because she just realized she left her phone inside. She slams into the glass door to throw it open, but it's locked, so she hits it hard. Then she steps back, hisses like a cat, and spits on the door handle, then leaves without the phone. I didn't even want to engage with her again, so I took the phone out to her at the bus stop. She tried to carry on the tirade, but I shut her down and went home. Speaking of dogs, do you have a dog? And if so, what kind? Please let us know. Teacup Chihuahuas for the win. You want me to pour cold water to melt the ice? Background. When I was 16, while working as a bagger in a grocery store, we got a new manager. We will call her Elisa. Elisa had a very "I'm right, you're wrong" attitude. She didn't care if she was in the wrong, but you better do what she told you until she changed her mind. If you spoke out against her, you would end up on her crap list, and she would do her best to get you fired. Story. Generally, the bagger is the lowest position in a store. We collect carts from the lot, put away items, stock, clean, bag, and somehow we are always at fault. Cue Elisa. I had an early shift. Clocked in, started morning duties, and I heard on the loudspeaker, "OP, please come up to aisle 6, frozen aisle, seafood." Edit. This is a really big, complex freezer. I came in, and Elisa gives me a smile and asks me to grab a bucket and a scrub brush. I was going to pull up the bottom aluminum floor panels at the bottom of the freezer and melt the ice that accumulates around the fans. It should take no longer than 30 minutes, she said. Make sure you use cold water since we don't want the temperature sensors to go off. Anything above 42 degrees Fahrenheit will set them off and corporate would call. I say, let me make sure I have this right. You would like me to fill the buckets with cold water and pour it on the ice in the freezer while the freezer is at 19 degrees Fahrenheit? Stares at me like I'm stupid. I inform her it isn't going to work. The water will freeze and just create a mound of ice. I suggest using hot or practically boiling water while watching the temperature. Elisa gives me a firm no and the threat of writing me up if I disobey. The start of malicious compliance begins. I've already figured that no matter what I do, I'm likely to be in trouble. To get the water, I had to fill in from the meat department sink. The meat manager asked what I was up to, and I told the story with all the details. Meat manager is scratching his head, and he heads over to call Elisa. She confirms, and I hear a bit of arguing. Meat manager comes back, gives me a smile, and says to do as I was told. He'd back me up. So for the next hour, I must have put about 200 gallons of cold water onto the freezer fan. I switched from a 2-gallon bucket to a 5-gallon bucket. I stopped and moved to the next fan each time the compartment was to brim with ice. I got 4 compartments done before she came to check on me. Instant rage. Elisa went from white to red real quick. "How the heck could you mess something up so simple?" said Elisa. I said, "I did exactly what you told me to. I took buckets of cold water and poured them on the ice around the fans." Right as she said she was going to write me up, the meat manager came over after hearing her. The meat manager saw the ice-filled compartments and mentioned that I should have used hot water. This sent Elisa over the edge. "Up to my office, now! You're being written up." The meat manager did what he said he'd do. He stuck up for me. Meat manager mentioned that he double-checked with her what she wanted me to do, and I was complying with her instructions. She went silent for a moment, and it was like her head was going to pop off. She just took a deep breath and muttered out, "Fix it," and walked away. The meat manager gave me an extended industrial hose hooked up to the hot water. The water in the meat department gets up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit to kill bacteria. The ice was gone in 15 minutes, and since apparently the freezer temperature measured as a whole, it never went above 34 degrees Fahrenheit. Elisa avoided me for over a week after that. I knew I was on her crap list, and for the next 8 months she tried to write me up for the most pitiful reasons. I eventually was given a written warning for leaving 9 minutes early with approval from the front-end manager that was friends with Elisa. At that point, I knew I would get fired for crap eventually, and I quit without my 2 weeks. Am I the jerk for having a fake accent and not fixing it? Hello, this one is fairly short. English is my second language. I'm of Asian descent, but my family moved around a lot trying to figure out where they wanted to settle down. As a result, I grew up living in different countries, picking odd blocks of languages and with it some accents and speech patterns. My family are all spread over the world from Japan, Singapore, Germany, Ireland, you get the point. I sound very American, and according to my Discord friends, I even sound like a Valley girl, and they're shocked when they find out I'm not. The other night, a new girl joined our server, and we were all chatting. I had just gotten off the phone with one of my cousins, who is currently in London. The thing is, when I speak to people from places I've lived in, I start to revive the accent. I'm not sure how to explain it, but my mom just says it's because I was exposed to it as a kid, and I slip in and out of it. Note that it's not even any real or formal accent, it's likely just what I was hearing as a kid. So I pop back in the channel, and I go to tell someone to move to another lane, and the girl asks why I'm talking that way. I say, oops, I was speaking to my cousin in London and it slips. One of my real-life friends explains to her that it happens when I talk to people from different countries, and the girl said that that was a dumb thing to do because I'm mocking other cultures. She asked, "Oh, so what's gonna happen to your little accent if I talk like this?" And she started saying things in what she introduced as her Chola accent. She challenged me to copy it, and I told her that she had it wrong. I explained to her that my friend didn't mean just any country. She meant countries I spent significant time in as I grew up. I told her sometimes I have an odd German accent, an odd British accent, an odd Filipino accent, and an odd Japanese accent. I say odd because you might be able to place it, but it's just not quite right. She says that I'm manipulative for doing that, and I should actively fix it since I can sound like I'm white. I told her absolutely not. I just talk. I am not actively going to think about how it comes out. Anyway, the girl calls me an appropriating jerk and that I am a massive jerk for having fake accents, that I'm stealing from people's cultures, and that I should just stick to my Pinoy accent if I want to seem interesting. Philippines is my birthplace, but most of my childhood was spent in Germany. Edit. I'm reading and responding to responses, but I just want to say I'm actually learning that this is a common thing and there's a name for it. Edit 2. I wasn't expecting this to blow up. I just wanted to address some things about it. I'm trying to read all comments, and I saw someone bring up HIMYM. Legit, I went searching for the term from that, and it was associative regression. But honestly, I think it's cool that it's called code switching too, and I learned a lot looking it up. This girl is only a new girl on Discord, but her and the IRL friend that stood up for me actually go to school together and have a mutual friend on the server, so those who suggested I link this post to her, I won't just be doing that. I'll also be trying to get her to read it right from my phone. I just need my friend with me because I'm so not a confrontational person. Oh, you want a man? Okay. I work in a field that is dominated by men. In fact, in my office of 30-ish people, only 3 of us are female. My direct boss, one of our QA reps, and myself. My job is a mix of technical support and customer service in a niche industry, and I've worked at my company for nearly 15 years doing the same job. Small company and not a lot of room to move as we tend to stick around. We deal with clients worldwide, and my department consists of 6 people. Generally, we have 2 to 3 on phones at any given time. 1 on chat, the other 2 working different queues. At least 2 to 3 times a week, I'm mistaken by clients as the secretary and asked to be transferred to tech support. My standard response is, I am part of tech support. What can I help you with today? And they are happy to work with me. Occasionally, maybe once every couple of years, someone will tell me that they want to talk to a male or more senior rep. My boss is fine with me accommodating those requests as long as we don't have a queue. On this particular day, we had me and our newest team member who had been with the company maybe a year at this point. He's now been with the company over 5 years. 2 of our team members had the day off, and it was later in the day, so the third phone person had finished their shift and gone home. It was busy, and we had a bit of a queue, and the new guy had a pretty difficult issue that he had been on the call for about 30 minutes. It was also when our management had their offsite, so we literally had no management in the office. I answer a call. Me. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? Client. Can you transfer me to support? Me. I am in support. How can I help you today? Client. Transfer me to a man. Women don't work in support. Me. I'm sorry, sir. All of our other representatives are on calls right now. How can I assist you today? The client hangs up. I take the next 2 calls, no issue. The 3rd call is the same caller. Me. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? Can you transfer me to support? I am in support. The client hangs up before I can offer to assist him again. I take another 2 calls, all the meanwhile helping the new guy where I can, as he's now about an hour on the call. Next call, yep, the same guy. Me. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? Can you transfer me to support? I am in support. How can I help you today? Transfer me to a man. Women don't work in support. Me. I'm sorry, sir. All our other representatives are on calls right now. Client. I'm not working with a woman. I want your manager. Me. I'm sorry. The manager is not in her office at this time. Client. No, I want a male manager. Me. I'm sorry. All the managers are away from their desks in a meeting at this time. I can request that one call you back when they're available. The client hangs up. At this point, the queue is clear and I continue to help the new guy with his issues. 5 minutes later, I get a call. It's this same guy. Me. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? Can you transfer me to support? I am in support. How can I help you today? He hangs up. Immediately, he calls back and I answer again. We have caller ID, so I can see it's the same guy. Me. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? He hangs up. This repeats about 6 times before I think he finally gave up. The new guy and I are close to fixing his client's issue. Maybe 10 minutes have passed since the guy stopped calling. When he calls back. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? Client. Is there a male available yet? The new guy fixes the issue and hangs up. Offers to take the call. Me. Yes. One moment while I transfer you to the other rep. Client. Finally. I transfer the call and the new guy answers. The client's issue is rather difficult, and after about 5 minutes, he asks for a more senior rep as the new guy doesn't know what he's doing. Client's words, not mine. The new guy looks at me and mouths, he wants a senior rep, to which I nod and he transfers the call back to me. Me. Thank you for calling company support. This is OP. Can I get your name or account number? Client. I asked for a senior rep, not you. Me. Sir, I am the senior rep available right now. I've been working with the company for over 10 years. Obviously, I know what I'm doing or I wouldn't still work here. The client reluctantly allows me to assist him, and it took less than 15 minutes to get him going again, as it was an issue we knew about with the version released when it started, and as the new guy never dealt with the older versions, he was still learning the legacy protocols. To the client's credit, they have never asked me to talk to a male again, and more often than not asked to talk to the female in support when they call. You should be ashamed. Irate customer blames me over the phone for another store's mistake. I'd been meaning to share this little story on here after I honestly never thought I would have my own little experience of mistaken identity, but here we are. Back in March, I started to work at a local grocery store's online orders department, helping fulfill customers' curbside orders so they can be ready for pickup. From what my manager and supervisor have said, before the craziness started, the department was rather quiet, with only a team of 3 to 4 really needed for things to run smoothly. However, it all quickly changed, and now we need a team of 6 to 7 every day just to barely function most of the time. This is due to the naturally massive influx of orders we've been getting, and all of a sudden, as many people now make the switch to online ordering due to the current times. Due to this sudden increased demand though, virtually every online order department hasn't been able to keep up half the time, so orders being late have become quite common. This can naturally leave customers rather frustrated as they expect to have their groceries ready only to be informed that they're late. From my experience, most can be quite understanding, but occasionally you get those angry people who want an ear to be rate. Just to give you a little context, there are 2 major parts to my job. Part 1, picking an order, going around the store to retrieve the items a customer ordered before dropping them off in our department. And Part 2, taking an order, assembling the order for when a customer arrives to retrieve their groceries before taking it out to whichever designated parking spot they're in. For the past several months, Part 2 is what I've been doing, as it's oftentimes the least enjoyed part of the job and has the most customer interaction. Now, I work in Store A,
and during the week this call happened, things had been rather quiet. We didn't get as many orders as we usually do, and we were able to do quite well for the past several days. To help speed things along, I was in the middle of picking a smaller order so my team could focus on the bigger ones when the mobile phone rang. Nothing new usually, just a customer calling to pick up their order. Today wasn't one of those days. Hello, thank you for calling Store A's curbside pickup. My name is OP. Are you here to pick up an order?
You know, you guys should be awfully ashamed of yourself for how you do this online order stuff.
Excuse me? What?
The other day I came to your store to pick up my order. It was supposed to be ready at 1 p.m. However, I go to the store and I'm told my order isn't ready yet. My order was supposed to be ready, but it wasn't.
I'm sorry, sir, but I think you called the wrong store. Which store did this happen at? The man completely ignores what I had to say and just continues to ramble.
Now, I wasn't too happy about that, so I went inside to the customer service to complain about this because this is absolutely ridiculous. I placed in my order for 1 p.m. only for you guys to tell me that it wasn't ready. How?
Me. Sir, I think you might have called the wrong store. We didn't have any late orders yesterday.
So after complaining at customer service, some more people come on to complain about their orders being late too. As we're complaining, I see barely any employees wearing a mask, despite of what's going on right now. Do you want this whole thing to last longer? Do you want to spread it to even more people? People like you are why so many people are sick right now.
The phone rings again. An actual customer is here to pick up their order, but my manager sees I'm still tied up with this guy, so he takes the call.
I filmed the whole thing. How no employees were wearing masks when this one loud manager lady comes down to tell me to be quiet, that I'm being too loud, when her voice is practically rattling the windows. She wasn't even wearing one either. Idiots like you are why this is going on for so long. I already posted the footage to Twitter, and many are angry like me. You're going to get a call from the police and the court soon because of it.
The guy hung up immediately after that. I'm still beyond confused, but the guy listened to absolutely nothing I said and just kept rambling on about something that happened at another store. Things go normal as I inform my manager about the irate customer just in case he calls the store directly. I'm making my way back to take out orders only for the guy to call again. I give my usual script only to be cut off.
I came yesterday to pick up my order scheduled for 1 p.m., but you, Store B people, told me it wasn't ready.
It all made sense now. He thought he was yelling into the ear of someone from Store B, not realizing he had called my store, Store A. I'm sorry, sir, but this isn't Store B. You called the wrong number.
After going inside to complain, absolutely nobody was wearing any sort of masks. Do you people just want this to last forever?
As this guy rambles, I see more people have shown up to retrieve their orders, and this guy just won't stop and listen at all. Not even offering to pass the phone to my manager will make him stop, as he's essentially now repeating everything he said before almost word for word. My supervisor finally just mimes for me to pass the phone to my manager so he can deal with this guy while I get back to my job. My manager has nearly a decade of retail experience with several years in HR, so he knows how to handle these kind of people. For the next 30 minutes, he was on the phone with this guy, listening to him complain endlessly into his ear and talking like a broken record at points as he repeats multiple points over and over again. All the while, my manager simply says, "Okay," each and every single time. I had been informed that after 30 minutes, my manager was finally able to get the guy to realize he had been calling the wrong store this whole time. He was complaining into the ears of people who had no clue what he was talking about. Apparently, he didn't even apologize, but did like how nice my manager was to him that he wanted to place his orders with us instead. After needing some help, he finally did with the whole thing, going rather smoothly, yet never showed up ever again. My guess was that the embarrassment of the whole situation finally caught up to him and he didn't want to come back. I'm probably wrong, but I can hope. Let it go? Okay, I will. Yesterday, me and my older brother went to a shopping mall where this incident took place. Cast. We've got me, we've got my big brother, and we've got the entitled girl. So we went to this place for some shopping. We don't usually go into this place, but since there were a few discounts on a few items we needed, Big Brother decided to check this place out. We went into the shop, and as soon as you step in, there's a greeter who welcomes you and asks if you need a trolley or a basket if we end up purchasing a lot of items. Big Brother said we need a trolley, so we took one and started getting to the aisle we needed to go to. I'm following Big Brother, and there's an old lady and two middle-aged ladies straight ahead. The old lady asked if she can borrow our trolley. No big deal.
Big Brother passes our trolley tour and asks me to get another one when one of the two middle-aged ladies asks if they can have one too. Okay, no problem. I took 2 trolleys and gave one to the ladies. Big Brother and I were ready to go, but we saw a guy that he knew. So Big Brother gave me the list and told me to scout the area. He used to be in the military, so scouts first, and that he would catch up in a minute. I agreed and started looking for the items, and as soon as I thought I was getting close to the right aisle, entitled girl appears. She's probably in her 20s and has the attitude of a rich kid. She grabbed my trolley and started yanking on it. I was caught off guard and pulled my trolley away from her. Here's our conversation. Me. Excuse me? Entitled girl.
Give me that one and bring one more.
Me. What?
Give me that trolley and bring me one more trolley.
Me. Go get your own. This is my trolley. Entitled girl.
Are you out of your mind? We have a problem. Give me that trolley and get me one more.
She kept yanking on the trolley. By the way, I'm not a big guy. 5'11", about 155 pounds. She looks about 5'1" or 5'2", maybe 85 pounds. She's using all her weight and muscles to try and pull the trolley back. That was a good forearm exercise for me. At this point, I'm thinking, what in the world is she thinking? We're in a shopping mall and she's asking for 2 trolleys because she has a problem? What's the problem? Maybe somebody got hurt and she's trying to put them in the trolley so she can get them to the hospital. Me. Get your own. I'm not your servant. Entitled girl.
Give me that.
By this time, Big Brother is done talking with his friend and is coming toward me. He made a gesture that said, "What's going on?" And I gestured back, "I don't know." But right there, I got my answer.
You work here. Get another trolley for me.
Now I realized she thought I worked there, so I tightened my grip and said, "I don't work here." She loosened her grip, and I thought this might be the end of it, right? Nope. Until this, she's been pulling the trolley facing me. Now she turns around and uses all her strength to pull it while screaming,
Let it go.
This time, Big Brother has almost reached me. He gestured what looked like, just let it go. So I did. All the force she had been using made her fly forward and crash. A few shop employees rushed over to her. Big Brother looked surprised and said, "What the heck, dude?" I didn't notice it until I heard the crash. Big Brother, maybe we should take baskets. I nodded and left that place until I noticed what actually made that chaos. The employees were dressed in pretty similar clothes to what I was wearing, so it must have been confusing. But still, she should have asked if I could bring her the trolleys instead of yanking and screaming. I think what's been going on has made more people more aggressive because they've been living alone for months without socializing. Lady returns 150 pieces of fried chicken. So, a few years back, I worked for a large retail/grocery company, and like most grocery stores, we have a deli section. I was working the returns desk, which I was still fairly new at, and a customer rolls up with a cart that had 2 cardboard boxes full of half-eaten fried chicken. I don't think I've ever seen that much fried chicken before. Me. Hello, how can I help you? Customer.
I would like to return this fried chicken.
Me. What's wrong with it? Customer.
I ordered this for a family reunion this past weekend. I took it home to my family, and when we got to eating it, it was all burnt and nasty. We weren't satisfied, and I'd like my money back.
I'd like to note that she's still wearing her family reunion shirt. She's quoting our fresh food policy, which is 100% money-back guarantee. So I decide to follow through with the return. Although in my head, I'm thinking why anyone would buy fried chicken from us, ever. Of course, it was going to be bad. Our deli food is known for being nasty. Anyway, she hands me her receipt and it says she bought 2 orders of 75 pieces of chicken, totaling out to about $100. I do the return, give her money back, and I come around to grab the cart of chicken. It doesn't end there. Later, I'm taking returns/claims back to their respective sections, bakery to bakery, frozen to frozen, etc. I roll the chicken cart over to the deli, and the 2 workers greet me, confused. I don't remember who said what, so I'll refer to them both as deli. Deli. What's this? They ask. Me. Claims. A lady came and returned these, said they were burnt and nasty. Deli. And you took it back? Me. Shrugs. Yeah, it's policy. 100% money back guarantee. At this point, they're now visibly angry. I have a mini freak out and start to doubt myself. Is that the policy? Did I do it wrong? I was still new at returns, so it's possible. Me. Was I wrong? They tell me no and sigh. They ask what the customer looked like, and I described her to them. They get more angry. Deli. She came in last weekend to pick up that big order of hers. Took us all day to make it. She comes in and doesn't have enough money. told us she didn't know it would be that much. She told us about her family reunion and how much it meant to her. She started crying. She only had about $80 on her, so we, the deli and bakery workers, decided to chip in and help her pay for the rest. All three of us looked down at the cart and cardboard boxes filled with half-eaten nasty chicken. This is why I have trust issues. Speaking of fried chicken, what's your favorite place to get fried chicken of all time? Please let us know.
KFC. Don't at me.
Entitled Karen pushes me out of my electric cart. So this just happened at my local grocery store and I'm still fuming over it. For reference, I have a hereditary connective tissue disorder, HEDS, that makes my tendons, ligaments, skin, some veins, and other connective tissue very loose and stretchy. This causes chronic pain, frequent dislocations, hyperextensions, and generally loose joints. I also have a degenerative disc disease that makes my heart race every time I'm standing and can eventually cause me to pass out if I'm standing for too long. I can walk, but I have to use a cane when I do because I can't walk very well for very long. My knees don't like to support my body weight, and I can very easily dislocate a knee or a hip if I step ever so slightly wrong or happen to trip over anything. Because of this, I tend to use my wheelchair for longer outings. Thankfully, my local grocery store has those electric carts that customers can ride around in the store, so I don't have to go to the trouble of hauling my wheelchair out of the car and can just use one of those. So I'm in the store, doing some grocery shopping, minding my own business. I wasn't even really paying attention to the people around me because I just wanted to get what I needed and get out. One of these items I needed happened to be on the top shelf, so I got up out of my electric cart to get it off the shelf. The next thing I know, this Karen loses it because
Those cards are for people who need them, not kids who just want to take them for a joyride.
I should add here that if you didn't know me or you've never seen me attempt to walk, there doesn't appear to be anything wrong with me. Other than the way I walk, I look perfectly healthy to the casual observer. Now, I get this kind of thing all the time when I'm using one of the store's electric carts, so I just rolled my eyes and told her that I do need it and started to move along to get the rest of my shopping done. Surprise, surprise, that wasn't the end of it. The next thing I know, this lady's hands are on my shoulders and she gives me a hefty shove and pushed me so hard I fell out of my cart. Now I'm just sitting there on the floor stunned while this lady yells at me in between generally incoherent ramblings about stupid college kids. Thankfully at this point, my boyfriend came back from grabbing milk. He rounded the corner into the aisle and saw what was going on, and from the look on his face, I'm surprised he didn't deck her. The subsequent argument went something like this. Boyfriend: "Excuse me, what the heck do you think you're doing?" Karen:
This little brat thinks it's okay to steal carts from disabled folks.
Boyfriend: "He is disabled, you idiot." Karen:
I saw him get up to reach for something. He's obviously faking it.
Boyfriend: "You thick jerk. You think just because he can stand means he doesn't need a cart? And you think that gives you the right to assault him? What the heck is wrong with you?" Boyfriend then proceeds to ask me if I want to call the cops. Lady starts freaking out over the possibility of actual charges, and I guess the commotion was enough that at this point, one of the store's managers decided to get involved. He sees me still on the floor, asks what's going on, and when my boyfriend explained what had happened, also asked me if I wanted to call the authorities. At this point, I had had enough, was pretty shaken up and on the verge of crying, which I don't like to do in public, and just wanted to go home. At the end of all this, the store manager comped my groceries, banned Karen from the store, and told me he would make sure that all the other stores from the chain that were in the area did too. I've had people give me the side eye or go so far as to chide me for using the store's electric carts before, but I have never had anyone put their hands on me until now. It makes me so mad because this lady literally just saw me stand up to reach something, and apparently that was reason enough for her to feel the need to physically remove me from the mobility aid I was using. Now, like I said, to the casual observer, I don't look disabled. Unless you saw me walking or saw me dislocate something, you probably wouldn't know there was anything wrong with me. It just makes me so angry because people ought to know that invisible illnesses exist and not all disabilities can be outwardly seen. Also, just because someone can stand up doesn't mean they don't need a wheelchair. It's not like only people who are paralyzed have the right to use one. And even if I was just a stupid college kid taking an electric cart for a spin, that still doesn't give someone the right to push me out of it. If you think I shouldn't be using it, go get a manager or something. Or better yet, mind your own business, and finish your own shopping. I shouldn't have to explain my disability to everyone who sees me using a mobility aid. That happens a lot, even when I'm just using my cane. Random strangers will ask me what happened or how I got hurt. My go-to answer/shutdown for that is now, I was born, and I especially shouldn't have to fear for my physical safety every time I need to go grocery shopping. Anyway, sorry if this was long-winded or ranty. It was infuriating. Entitled Dad threatens to call cops over a lunchbox. This is my first post on Reddit, and I created my account specifically to post this story here because it's crazy. It takes place at my summer job at a day camp. I was and am a high school student at the time of writing this. I still work there, so I have to be very careful about giving away too much and identifying the business. It was over a year ago too, so some of the finer details might be misremembered. The interaction is mainly between my boss, the head counselor, and the dad. The cast. We've got Entitled Dad. We've got Mike, my boss, the head counselor. We've got Sam, Entitled Dad's kid. I don't want to call him Entitled Kid, as I really blame the parenting here, and he wasn't bad at all in this story. And we've got the other counselors and I. As I mentioned, I'm mostly an observer here. So it's the end of the day on Friday. Camp normally ends at 3. The counselors leave at 3:15, and Mike will stay with the kids in aftercare until the last kid gets picked up by 6. However, on Fridays, the counselors all stay late to clean up, usually until around 5 or 6. The kids in aftercare just play by themselves, or we put on some cartoons. Mike usually plays with them, but as mentioned, Friday is cleanup day. We're all cleaning up, and slowly the parents of kids in aftercare are trickling in to pick their kids up. Sam is just hanging out. Now, we had another kid in the camp, Isaac. His parents had already picked him up. He and Sam had the same model lunchbox. We didn't have a problem with this until today. Entitled Dad comes to pick up Sam and goes to get his lunchbox from the table. He picks it up, marches to Mike, and says, "This is not my kid's lunchbox." Mike sighs and says calmly, "I'm sorry, we had another kid this week, Isaac, who had the same lunchbox. I guess that's Isaac's lunchbox you're holding." Entitled Dad scoffs and says, "Obviously. Now get my kid's lunchbox back," and starts to walk out with Isaac's lunchbox. Mike rushes forward saying, I can call Isaac's parents, but I'm going to need you to leave his lunchbox here." Entitled Dad, No. They have my kid's lunchbox. I have theirs. This is my insurance. I get my kid's lunchbox back. I will give it back when they give me my kids. I'll wait for them to come here." Mike is flabbergasted. All the counselors are listening, but pretending not to so we don't get involved. Mike, "Well, it might be a while to get a hold of Isaac's parents. They only left 5 minutes ago, so they could still be driving and not pick up the phone." Entitled Dad, "Well then, I'm not waiting. I'm leaving. You have my address. I give you my permission to give them my address, and then they can come to my house and make the exchange." Mike, "I cannot let you leave premises with another kid's property." "Why not? You let that family leave with my kid's property." I don't think I've ever seen Mike more confused. Mike, "That was an accident. I can't knowingly let you leave with that lunchbox." Entitled Dad, "You guys are lucky I'm not calling the cops." Mike, "I'm sorry?" "Your negligence let another family steal my kid's lunchbox." Mike, starting to get a little upset, "Sir, mistakes happen. Again, I apologize for this inconvenience, but there was no crime committed here." This goes on for a few minutes. Eventually, Mike pulls a 1000 IQ move. He was studying to get his master's in elementary education. He knows how to handle temper tantrums. "All right, sir, I'll see what I can do. In the meantime, would you mind signing Sam out?" He hands Entitled Dad a pen and a clipboard with a sign-out sheet. To sign it, Entitled Dad has to set the lunchbox down on the table. Entitled Dad, of course, doesn't notice and falls for it. While he's signing Sam out, Mike quietly takes Isaac's lunchbox and sets it safely behind him. Entitled Dad never notices. Then, Mike checks the contact list and calls Isaac's parents. His end of the conversation goes something like this. "Hi, Isaac's mom. This is Mike from the camp. I believe I have Isaac's lunchbox here. Yeah, he and another kid had the same lunchbox, so you probably have his. No worries. When do you think you'll be able to drop it off?" "Oh, really? Uh-huh. No worries. See you shortly. Bye." He turns and looks at Entitled Dad. In an impressively calm voice, he states, "They will be back shortly to pick up Isaac's lunchbox, but they do not have Sam's. Isaac just forgot to grab his." It was so silent you could hear a pin drop. The other counselors and I froze for a second, but managed to keep the facade of, We're just working here, don't mind us. Entitled Dad freezes for a moment, unsure of what to do. I can see the little gears turning in his head. He comes to his epic conclusion. Well then, it must be here. Genius. He starts tearing around the room, looking everywhere from the lunchbox table to the play area to the game shelves to the office where the kids aren't even allowed in. Everywhere. Mind you, we had been cleaning up, and so everything was very neat and tidy. While this is going on, Mike decides a different strategy. While Entitled Dad is dismantling the last hour of cleaning and tidying, Mike crouches down next to Sam. During all this, Sam had been just quietly playing with some toys. He was around 6. Mike, hey buddy, do you remember where you put your lunchbox? Sam nods. Mike, where is it? Sam, on the kitchen table? Everything stopped. The other counselors and I couldn't maintain our indifferent facade any longer. We just froze. Half of us staring at Sam, the other half glared at Entitled Dad. You don't talk to Mike or anyone at this camp like that and get away with it. Now, I briefly want to talk about Mike. He's probably one of the most chill, funniest, silliest teachers/counselors you could find. Absolutely perfect for a job like this. He could entertain the kids for hours, break up arguments, anything. He would put on these funny personas and act out scenes with them. He was also my first career mentor figure that I had and gave me some great advice. If I was older, I'd say he's the type I could grab a beer with. Just so relaxed and a great guy. He deserves all the praise in the world. I wish I could name him, but that would reveal too much. However, when he stood there was a look on his face I had never seen before. Gone was the silliness. Gone was the fun. Also gone was the tolerance for this Entitled Dad. In the most deadly calm voice that practically shouted anything but calm, he said, Sam says his lunchbox is on the kitchen table in your house. The lunchbox isn't here. Entitled Dad once again freezes. His face goes white, then red, then blue. Guess he was still feeling some of that 4th of July spirit. He stutters for a bit before turning to Sam. He said, Now look at this. You've made me look stupid. It was at that moment I lost all little remaining respect for this guy. It was also the moment I felt bad for Sam. Throughout the week, Sam had been a less than stellar camper. He threw tantrums, was entitled, didn't follow the rules very well, etc. All frustration I had for him was replaced by pity. He had been raised in a house where his father's mistakes and actions led to him being blamed. He had been raised by a man so entitled he would throw tantrums over a kid's lunchbox. That's why I'm not calling him Entitled Kid in this story. He deserves much better. Anyways, Mike manages to put a stop to that quickly by just stepping behind them and non-physically urging them towards the door. Entitled Dad doesn't get the memo and turns to Mike. I still had some hope Entitled Dad would apologize. Nope. Entitled Dad decided it was time for small talk. Entitled Dad. So, Mike, you in college? A stunned Mike. Yes. Entitled Dad. What are you studying? Mike. I'm getting my master's in elementary education. Oh, cool. What's that like? Mike. Great. We learn how to deal with childhood behavior all the time, such as exploration of the world, strengthening communication skills, tantrums. He put emphasis on the last part. Entitled Dad finally got the hint and walked out. We all looked at each other like, what the heck just happened? Mike just shook his head, called his boss, the CEO, to tell her what had happened just in case, and then we went back to normal. I later asked him about Entitled Dad, and he said that apparently the family is really wealthy and buys a spot for their kids for every week in the summer. Then they decide whether or not they want to show up that week, not bothering to ask for a refund. Some families. Speaking of camp, have you ever been to a camp? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know.
Karen's retreat coming soon. Book your spots now.
My grandma tried to ruin my brother's wedding. My brother's wedding was 2 years ago, but this still upsets me every time it comes to my mind. My grandmother is rather histrionic. If she isn't the center of attention, she will make herself the center of attention. So it was my brother's wedding and I was his best man. I have a tiny car and needed to be at the wedding venue early, and my grandma was going to be picked up by my parents later. She wasn't anywhere near ready and I needed to leave, so I assumed all was well at this point. We set everything up at the venue and took photos and got ready for the ceremony. And finally, my parents arrived with my grandma in tow. She was already upset and causing a scene because I had abandoned her when I left for the venue. We managed to calm her down, but I could see my brother was already getting disappointed with the situation. He just wanted everything to go right, and he's too nice to say anything to our grandma. Things went okay for a while, until we were seating her in the chapel and she wasn't getting to sit with my mom and dad at the very front where the parents of the bride and groom had the place of honor. Once more, she made a big scene until she was moved to the front next to my parents. My brother was red with embarrassment as everyone from both families had pretty much filled into the chapel. Things calmed back down once she had her way. The last straw was at the reception. Everyone was eating and having a good time. I was going around checking on the tables to make sure everything was going well and people were being taken care of. And then I get to my grandma's table. I don't remember exactly what she said, as I kind of lost it at that point, and this was like 2 years ago. But it was something like,
Why is this taking so long? If they aren't going to get the reception moving along, I need you to take me home.
I replied with something like, I still have to give the best man speech in a while, and you aren't going to be asking mom and dad to take you back. Then she said the words. She said this to me growing up anytime I said something about school or something I had learned or disagreed about, and it basically instantly triggers me.
Don't you get smart with me, you little jerk.
I saw red, and I said something to get her to come outside the venue. Then I got vicious. I didn't yell because I didn't want to draw attention to the situation, but anyone within line of sight would easily know I was mad. I told her something along the lines of, You need to sit down and shut up. This is my brother's wedding. He still believes you are this amazing person that he wants in his life. But I've seen through to the vile jerk you are for years now. You mistreat my mom, and you're trying to do the same to my brother now. Your BS will never fly with me. I know what you are, and if you don't get back in there and pretend that you're having a great time, you will have nothing to do with my life. She got all mad and said,
How dare you talk to your elders like that?
I handed her the keys to my car and told her she could leave if she absolutely couldn't stand the reception. But if she did, she would never be invited to be a part of anything in my life. Not my wedding, not my graduation, not even to see any grandchildren I might have in the future. And you will be lucky if you see me again before you die. Apparently, she either didn't care or thought I was bluffing because she left. I haven't seen her since. My choice. She complains to my mom that I don't talk to her. I specifically sent her what looked like an invitation that told her that she wasn't invited to my wedding. Then she wasn't invited to my graduation. And after learning about the comments she made about me, who's Caucasian, and my Asian wife, and how it's good we haven't had any kids yet because the world doesn't need any more babies like that, I hate her guts. I'd like to say some part of me still loves her, but after everything, I can't even stand the thought of her. If there was any chance I could forgive her for how she tried to ruin my brother's wedding, what she said about me and my wife pretty much solidified my determination that she would never meet her grandkids, and that I'm not even sure I would be willing to visit her on her deathbed. I don't know if I overreacted or if I'm a bad person for responding like this, but I watched for 18 years as she mistreated my mom over and over again, and my dad by proxy. She had always doted on me and my brother, but when she acted like that at my brother's wedding, all of that came boiling to the surface and I tore into her. You won't stop calling me unless I agree to set up a meeting with one of your reps? Okay then. In the mid-2000s, I worked for a small printing company. Our commercial work was on large lithographic machines, but we still had office printers and a number of staff who knew a lot about them. I don't think a single one of our office printers had been purchased new or even working. The owner just bought lots of broken office printers for not a lot of money and then Frankensteined them into working ones. We didn't often buy printer paper because we had just cut leftovers from the factory to suitable sizes for our office. Overall, our office printing costs were extremely low despite the fact that we printed tens of thousands of pages a year. I was a general office dog's body. Among my duties was fielding calls for the director. He would never take calls from cold callers, and I was allowed to describe myself as whatever job title they wanted to hear to deal with them. An office printing management service had got our number. They were offering a completely managed service where they loaned the machines, supplied the consumables, took care of everything, and you just paid per print. Great for some companies, expensive and unnecessary for us. When they first started ringing, I kept telling them, "Sorry, we aren't interested. Please remove us from your list." Or, "We're a printing company. We don't need managed printing services. Please take us off your list." This must have gone on for months, and I was getting annoyed that they wouldn't take us off the call list, and started spending more time trying to explain to them why it was pointless and a waste of both our time to keep ringing. I explained the information above, but the caller was convinced he could save us money regardless of all that. I guaranteed him he couldn't, as I doubted we paid more than a penny a page. Naturally, he didn't believe me. As far as he was concerned, if I was answering the phone, I was the office junior. no one important answers the phone, who had no idea how much printing actually cost, and just too stubborn and/or stupid to put him through to someone that mattered, and if he persisted, eventually he'd get through to the right person who would reward him with a juicy contract. This same conversation was had at least once a week for the next month or so. He's desperate to let me set up a meeting. Besides, he says he can take us off the list once he's set up a meeting with a decision maker. Right, fine, sure, you can book a meeting for your reps, but I guarantee it will be a complete waste of their time. I scheduled them a meeting with the office manager, me, on a Friday afternoon when I'm the only one in the office, so I won't be too busy and it'll be a diversion. The reps arrive. I show them into the office. They're clearly thinking we spend a lot on printing because we have so many printers, and I gave a rough idea of how much we get through in the office. They give me their enthusiastic spiel about all the advantages, focusing on the costs. They want to sit down with the figures and see what they can save us. Do I know what we spend at the moment? Paraphrased conversation. Me. Not completely sure. Think it's around 100 to 200 pounds a year. Rep. Nah, it'll be a lot more than that with the amount of printing you do. Is that just the paper? Me. No, that's just ink and toner. Rep. Looks skeptical. Well, there's the paper too. Me. To be honest, we mostly cut down leftover paper from the factory, or sometimes suppliers give us a few cases for free. Rep. Okay, right. So what about the initial costs of the machines? If you average it out over the lifetime of printers rather than considering it just a capital expenditure, it can take up a significant portion of your printing costs. This photocopier, for example, it's a few years old now, and you're looking at about 12,000 pounds to replace it with a similar spec machine. So with our service, you can avoid that capital expense. Me. The owner buys them broken and repairs them. Most of the printers only cost a few quid, except the photocopier, which I think cost us 700 pounds. As even broken, they're expensive, and it took 3 broken ones to make that one working again. Rep. Right. So when you need to replace it, me. I hazard to guess he'll do exactly the same again. Rep. And the ongoing maintenance costs? Then there's the costs and lost productivity of downtime to consider. He's trailing off at this point. It's clearly part of his rehearsed spiel, but he can also see downtime isn't an issue when we bizarrely have more printers than computers. Rep. There's absolutely no point of us being here, is there? Me. No, I'm afraid not. That was repeatedly explained to the guy who set up the meeting, but he said your company won't stop cold calling until we agreed to a meeting. So here you are. The reps agree it is a complete waste of time, have a bit of a frustrated laugh about the call center, and says it's not the first time they've been sent to completely pointless meetings because the call center folks get their commission based on the quantity, not quality of the meetings they set up. They don't bother giving me their quote. I never heard from that company again. Am I the jerk for possibly costing my son his best friend? My son, who's 10, has been playing Fortnite with his best friend for a couple of years. For about a year and a half of that time, it was just the two of them playing, and in the last 6 months, more and more of their classmates have started to join in. My kids are with me every other week, and on the weeks they are here, I spend a good amount of time with them, chilling, doing homework, movies, etc. I live with my girlfriend and her 3 kids, so we spend a lot of time in the boys' very large room. About 3 months ago, I started noticing my son being upset and found out that he was being kicked from the groups, and at first I was concerned. Maybe he was being a little jerk or whatever. About 2 months back, I was in their room and my son was playing with his friends and I heard him kind of begging and saying, "Don't kick me." And then he said, "I don't have V-Bucks to get you that skin." And then he got kicked. I asked him what was going on and he downplayed it and I let it go. Since that point, I've seen the same thing happen a few more times and I finally got him to open up to me. And it turns out he has been being bullied by his friend for a long time into giving/gifting skins, emotes, and other items. I explained to him that I got the V-Bucks for him to get stuff for himself and that I can't afford to be getting his friend stuff. He said he understood and said he would stop. It turns out that his friend has been doing this to all of his friends, and he opened up to me that he had given this kid 20 plus items ranging from 1,200 to 2,000 V-Bucks, $12 to $20 each. So I've spent anywhere from $250 to $400 on this kid that I know of. I had written out a long text to the kid's mom a couple weeks back, and for some reason I decided not to send it. Well, Tuesday, yep, you guessed it. I was in the kid's room and I heard, "No, Billy, I don't have enough V-Bucks to get you that skin." But then I heard, "You know what, Billy? I've given you more than 20 things, and you've given me 1. He was of course kicked from the group. That was the last straw for me, and I guess for my son. It turns out that the other kids were giving this kid whatever he wanted, and that was why my son often was the one who would get kicked. I told him I was going to be sending his friend's mom a text explaining everything, and I also had some text messages with Billy saying, "If you buy this skin, I will refriend you." He begged me not to send it, but I obviously thought it was important enough that the mom needed to know what her kid was doing. She replied back in a very understanding way, apologizing to my son and to me, and said she would be talking to her son yesterday after school. So my son didn't want to go to school today because he's worried about how things will go. So, am I the jerk, or did I do the right thing? Hard to ruin a 5-year best friend relationship, and yes, I see that this kid wasn't really being a best friend. Oddly, I blame what's going on for bringing this on. For 6 months, the only place they saw each other was online. And yes, the mother has offered to reimburse us for the V-Bucks. Update. So I went to pick him up from school and he was doing great. He said yes, his friend is mad at him, but that he was still talking to him. Billy has lost his gaming, phone, and internet privileges for 30 days and was made to apologize to my son. I was trying to keep my posting somewhat short, so I didn't explain how much we talked about all of this. We go on nightly walks. I took the time to explain that real friends don't do this type of stuff, and my son totally understands that. I haven't heard back yet from the mom, but have no reason to think she won't follow through and pay us back. Thank you to all of you that commented, and wow, I've never received awards like this before. Thank you to you all. And to people posting that "why did I do this?" or saying I made a bad choice, I will just say that I've had many parents and people reply they have gone through similar stuff and that this post hit home with them. So that's reason enough for me. Thank you again, everyone. Am I the jerk for demanding my girlfriend return the $1,200 sofa she bought using my operation money? So this happened yesterday, and my girlfriend is calling me a jerk for wanting her to return the sofa that she said she bought to make my apartment look nice. I'll start by saying that my 25 male girlfriend, 22 female, moved in with me 2 months ago into my apartment. I've been saving for a rotator cuff surgery in my left shoulder. I've been experiencing tense pain in my entire shoulder joint, difficulty with movement, and inability to perform tasks at work. Because my arm would feel numb and I can't pick and lift things with it, the total cost is $7,000, and I'm planning on having the operation before the end of this year for a number of reasons. My girlfriend doesn't have a job. She says she's relieved that I own an apartment and that we don't have to pay for rent. And lately, she's been talking about my old furniture and wanting it to be replaced, especially the sofa that she calls ugly, even refuses to sit on it, saying it's old and disgusting. Last week, she's been looking at different types of sofas that she said she wanted to buy. She tried to show some pictures and convince me of how nice it would look in our living room. I refused to buy it because it's expensive and I don't have money to buy it. She said that I have $3,500 in my savings and that I could afford the sofa and then continue saving for my operation. She also said that I won't have to pay a lot of money. I get upset when she mentions this, and I told her to drop it completely. Yesterday, I got home at 8 p.m. First thing I noticed was my old sofa outside. I walked in to see what was going on, and I saw the round arm sofa she showed me last week. I asked her about it, and she said she used $1,200 from my savings to buy it, and went on about how the sofa made a huge difference in the interior decor and looked nice. I got angry with her. I told her to return it immediately and get my money back, but she yelled at me that she bought the sofa for me, not her, and that she felt embarrassed by that disgusting sofa that I keep holding on to, probably because of memories I had with my ex. I told her she needed to return it, and yesterday she started crying and called me a jerk because she thought she was doing something nice for my apartment and then left. I called her, and she's refusing to come back to have a civil talk with me and said that I wasn't civil when I yelled at her. Edit. The money was at my apartment. I've been keeping the money to pay for my operation at my place because that was easier than having to go to the bank every day. I save whatever I can get, and I also have to pay for other things as well. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you keep the sofa or have her return it? Please let us know.
She sounds like a lovely young lady. Reminds me of myself. Karen's stepmom doesn't let me speak
And lies to get me in trouble. So my parents divorced when I was very little, and my dad got remarried to another woman who turned out to be a Karen. She didn't start acting like one towards me until I was much older though, around 7 or 8. My dad eventually divorced her, but not until I was 12. It's a long story. Anyway, I have many stories about her. I will probably tell those some other time, but here's my first one. So first, I was 10 or 11 at the time, and I was very socially awkward. Anyway, it was a Sunday night, and I was putting my clothes away in my closet like a good kid I was trying to be. Eventually, I finished up and went inside the other room to watch TV. A few minutes later, Karen comes in upset and tells me to come back to my room. I follow her into my open closet. This is how the conversation follows. Karen:
Want to tell me why you put your clothes up wrong?
Me, confused and nervous as heck. What do you mean? Karen grabs a shirt off the hanger.
You put your shirts on wrong, and now you have stretched it.
In truth, I don't really care how the shirt looks, as long as the message on the shirt is okay and it's not like ripped in half or anything. I only care if it fits. Me, I look at it confused as to what I should be looking for. I don't see anything wrong with it. Karen, figuring out this was going nowhere.
How did you put this shirt on the hanger?
I show her. I put it in through the top because it was easier than to go through the bottom because they would get more wrinkled that way. And then she would yell at me for that. Karen, condescendingly:
You are doing it wrong.
Me: Well, can I explain why I did it that way? Karen, getting louder and more demeaning:
Don't you dare argue with me.
Me: I am not arguing. I just want to explain myself. Karen, same thing.
Stop arguing back and listen to me, OP.
Me: Once again, do you want to know why I did it that way? This goes on for about 15 to 20 minutes with her just yelling in my face about how I am arguing back to her for showing me how to put my clothes up. Nothing but just nonstop shouting and her constantly cutting me off, saying I'm arguing and not being respectful. Finally, I just decide to be quiet and let her speak since this whole thing was going nowhere. She shows me the way I am supposed to put my clothes up, and I am trying my best not to cry. She finally finished. She said something else. I forgot what exactly, but it was something I had been trying to say before the whole debacle occurred. Me: Okay, can I just say this one thing? This is where Karen cranked the crazy level up to a 10.
That is it. We are going to talk to your father.
She dragged me downstairs to the exact other side of the house where my dad was doing work on the computer. I was bawling my eyes out. All that flooded my head was, I am done for. I am done for. We enter the office and I sit in a chair in the corner and I'm crying like crazy, saying, I'm done for. I legit felt like my dad would believe her over me because she is the adult. She tells him her side and blatantly lies to him, saying I was arguing back and wouldn't let her teach me. She said that no matter what, I wouldn't let her talk and I was being disrespectful the whole time, when really it was the other way around. So my dad pulled me aside with her in the office there looking at me. Finally, I get a chance to speak my mind. I told him what happened and why I did what I did. I also told him that I was trying to explain myself, but she would not let me speak and made up the whole arguing back stuff. She said that it was a lie, and I know it. Luckily, my dad believed me, and I got away without repercussions. For what I could tell, nothing happened to her, but she and my dad had been fighting for a while, and eventually my dad divorced her. So I think that counts as a win. That is the first of the stories of my Karen. Have you ever had someone argue with you and not even give you a chance to speak? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
Every time I talk to a manager.
Am I the jerk for not letting my nephew keep the switch my husband gave him? I'm 24, female, and my husband, who's male, 26, tends to perceive small talks and questions as requests. I don't really know how to explain it, but you have to be very specific with the things you ask him for/to do. For example, if you say that you like his phone and that you plan to get the same one, he's going to gift it to you immediately because he truly believes that's how the world works. It's confusing, but that's how his parents used to communicate with him and that's how he learned to respond. We are improving a lot, and I know he has the biggest heart, but sadly, this has led to people taking advantage of him and taking his things away because he has a hard time saying no. Also, he just doesn't comprehend at first, but if you try to explain to him, he would, eventually, understand that you just want to talk and not ask him for anything. However, my family thinks that this is perfect, especially my sister and my brother-in-law, since my husband comes from a well-off family. They feel entitled to ask him for any luxury they want to have. An elegant dinner in a fancy restaurant with all paid? Ask OP's husband. Any material thing they want to have? Ask OP's husband. Thanks to that, I had to block them on my husband's phone to make sure they can only talk to him in my presence, meaning that I can control the things they ask for and just say no. They think that I'm the jerk because I'm enjoying all his money and that I'm selfish because we're a family and we should share it all. I just ignore them because I'm not wasting his money and I'm always trying to help him. I know that he loves my family, and if it were for him, he would give them the world. But it's not fair. He isn't an ATM. Yesterday, my sister, who's 31, and brother-in-law, who's 38, and my nephew, who's 8, came to hang out with us, which seemed rare, but okay. I let it go because my husband was so happy to see them and he really adores our nephew. So while they all were playing, my sister expected me to be their maid because they deserve a day in my life. We ended up arguing over this and my husband took out nephew away. They, again, called me a selfish jerk and I ended up asking them to leave and called my nephew. When he came back into the room, he had my husband's switch with everything he had in his hands. He said that my husband gave it to him, which again, I was confused, so I asked him if that was true, and he said that my nephew asked him if he could keep it and that he said yes. I told my nephew that he couldn't keep it because that belonged to my husband and reminded him of his uncle's condition, that maybe we could give him one for Christmas. My sister and brother-in-law started to argue that if he gave it to him, then he could keep it, and tried to leave with it. I was honestly tired at this point and just took the switch back and told them to stop behaving like beggars in front of their kid. Edit. OMG, I didn't expect this to blow up as it did. It's late now, but I will try to answer some of you tomorrow. However, there's something I want to address. My husband's family are not bad people, and his brother loves him with all his heart. Please stop acting as if trusting them is the biggest error of my life. Guys, it's not. They adore him. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your nephew keep the switch or not? Please let us know.
I sure wouldn't be allowing those relatives to come over again.
Angel Investor tells me how I should be running my business. We were a couple of months into our little cafe being open, and we're still making a name for ourselves. We had handed out pamphlets encouraging other local businesses to give us a try in the weeks prior. The owner of a local gym came in and introduced himself. We'll call him Brock. Brock was a tall, muscular man with blonde hair, icy blue eyes that stared right into your soul. Think White Walker level. And he was perhaps in his early to mid-40s. He was surprised to see that we had vegan options and talked about how he and his family were vegan. My partner and I introduced ourselves too. He took a seat, I brought him his coffee and vegan protein ball with a smile and went about my usual cafe duties. About half an hour later, as I'm walking past his table, he calls me over. Brock.
I have a question.
Me. Sure, Brock. What can I do for you?
Brock. What is your strategy?
Me. In regards to?
Your business. I'd like to know how you're planning on taking down your competition.
I'm not kidding or even exaggerating. Those were his exact words. Me. We don't plan on taking anyone down. Brock.
Surely you do. You can't expect to have a successful business without a strategy to attract your competitors' customers.
Note, we were in a suburb that was still developing its cafe culture, and we were pretty unique in what we offered, so this was hardly a concern. Me. I think there's room for everyone, but I guess our strategy has always been to be the best we can possibly be, provide good service, and try to cater to people like yourself who don't have many other options around here. Brock.
That's not enough. You need word of mouth.
You need good reviews. Note, I totally agree with his statement, but not with his overall message. Me. Good service and good quality leads to good reviews. Brock snorts.
No, you have to make people review you. Force them, or they won't do it.
I was about to respond, and he cut me off by saying,
I know people, and some people I know own a restaurant.
He dropped the name and said I'd probably heard of it. I hadn't.
I helped them out. We won't get into that, but they made a point of telling every single customer to write a review. Every single one.
Me. I'm sure that was beneficial, but I'd prefer to have people willingly write their own good reviews and not to put any kind of pressure on my customers. At this, Brock let out a cold, fake laugh and said, in the most condescending tone,
"That is not how business works, sweetheart."
This really rubbed me the wrong way, but I smiled and calmly responded, "Well, that's how my business works, Brock." He left about an hour later, and I didn't say anything else to him other than the usual, "Thank you for coming," as he left. A few weeks later, he turned up an hour after our closing time, stared right at the closed sign, and then proceeded to knock on the door and wave at me. Since he was a local business owner, I figured it might be a business issue he needed to discuss, so I opened the door. He immediately said,
"Large soy cappuccino, thanks."
I politely told him that our machine was off and had been cleaned, so I couldn't make him a coffee. He then exclaimed,
"God, why close so early? Why not close at 5 instead?"
I explained that afternoons were quiet. We eventually cut our hours even shorter. He stormed off. I apologized to his back. Not long after, one of our other customers, who was lovely, let me know that he had been A, bad-mouthing us on a vegan Facebook page, and B, to his customers and staff. He said on the vegan page, 50% of people were like, well, why would you ask for coffee when they were closed? And the other 50% were outraged and said we should have made the effort. Apparently, though, in his post, he had written that he had done a lot for us and that we were therefore ungrateful when we didn't make him a coffee. This confused the heck out of me. He had bought one coffee, one protein ball, and then given me some unsolicited mansplaining about how I should run my business in a more ruthless manner. That was the extent of our interaction with him. Yet, this entitled jerk was telling people he had helped us? Out of curiosity, I looked him up. He had a website promoting himself as a self-made millionaire and an angel investor who was passionate about helping others. I remember saying to my partner that accepting his help would be somewhat like signing your soul over to the devil. This guy gave me the skeevies, and I truly doubt he ever gave people money with no strings attached. Additionally, a couple of months later, our vegan baker, responsible for the brownies for my last post, who was truly a kind and gentle soul, brought him up. She asked if I knew him. He was very active in the local vegan community, and so was our baker, so I didn't want to say anything negative about him. I silently nodded that yes, we had met him. She asked what he was like. At this point, she seemed uneasy, so I told her about the way he had treated us. She looked relieved and said he had approached her at a local market and said some weird, condescending things, but kept giving her a very fake smile and complimenting her at the same time. He had creeped her out, and she felt like he wanted to use her or her business for his own gain. I wasn't at all shocked. Didn't see him much after that. His wife would come in occasionally, and I was always polite, but careful. Have you ever met someone like Brock? And if so, what did they say to you? Please let us know.
I think his real name must be Chad.
Why aren't you smiling? One of my biggest pet peeves when working in retail was the countless times that customers got mad over situations that were out of the employee's control. Being out of a certain item, machines breaking, price changes, items being reshelved, everything that was left to the higher-ups, not the overworked and underpaid staff. I've got many stories of people thinking I can magically make their favorite items be back in stock, or that I could change the price of a certain item. Here's one story where the outcome was actually satisfying for a change. When I was 18, I used to work at a convenience store, and one of our regulars was an elderly lady who bought the same bottle of off-brand Frappuccino and smokes every single day. We'll call her CL for Cranky Lady. At first, she didn't seem all that bad, but she ended up being the type of person who wanted everything to be just so. Cranky Lady wanted the exact same routine every single day. If we were out of her favorite cigs, out of her favorite coffee, or if she waited in line for more than 5 minutes, she'd share her displeasure with everyone unfortunate enough to listen.
Ugh, I can't believe it. I haven't got all day, you know. Are you kidding me?
Now this was back in my late teens, so I already had the self-esteem of roadkill. I wasn't too fazed by people treating me like this. Plus, I knew I'd just get in more trouble if I retaliated, so I just learned to put up with her shenanigans. One day, Karen's routine was thrown way off course. By the time she entered our store, we were just restocking the cig shelves. There were no more bottles of her favorite coffee, and there was a line of about 5 or 6 other customers. You could hear her usual exclamations of annoyance from across the store. I was running the register and got more nervous than usual when she approached the counter. Note, the quotes might not be exact, as this was about 5 or 6 years ago. Karen:
It's about dang time. Where's my Marlboro lights?
Me: We're stocking the shelves as we speak, ma'am. It'll be a few minutes. Karen:
I don't have a few minutes, jerk. I've been coming here every single day, and I always get my iced Frappuccino and Marlboro lights.
Me: We have other kinds of Marlboro if you're interested.
I don't want no other kinds. I always get my lights.
Now, I wasn't diagnosed yet, but I developed CPTSD from being treated similarly by my father throughout my childhood, and something about the way Karen yelled at me gave me a similar feeling to when my dad was doing it. I tried to keep my best customer service demeanor, but it was hard to keep it up when you're also trying to bottle up your urge to get angry or start crying. Then Karen said something I don't think I've ever heard anyone complain to me about. Karen:
Why ain't you smiling?
Me: Ma'am, please calm down.
Whatever happened to being bright and cheerful towards customers? Whatever happened to the customer's always right? Now, are you done getting my dang cigarettes?
A couple of ladies in line criticized Karen for using language like this in front of her kids.
Oh, shut up. This is America. I can say whatever the heck I want.
Just when I felt like I was about to either explode in anger or in tears, my hero boss walked in and started escorting Karen out. She tried screaming,
Get your hands off me. You respect your elders. I'm 78 years old.
We didn't have any security, so my boss just guarded the door, letting other customers come in or out while keeping Karen out until she gave up and left. My boss apologized profusely and told me that the Karen was actually his grandmother-in-law. Apparently, everyone in their family thinks she has Asperger's syndrome, and a big part of it is obsession with routines. I kind of felt a little bad for her looking back on it, but also very much glad to have her gone. Later, my boss banned her from the store until she and I, quote, got her crap together. 'Cause judgment day coming hard and fast, whatever that means. Moral of the story, retail employees are people too. I don't work there, but I do work here. So I'm a security contractor, red guard, and I'm basically an on-call 24/7 officer with on-site shifts 5 days a week in charge of a shopping plaza of about 20-odd stores. I'm good at my job, but I'm very aware of where my authority ends, at the door of every business. I handle the plaza as a whole and am in charge of all the exterior of the building and parking lot areas. I will occasionally be asked to spook someone, keep a lookout, or back up a manager at a shop, but they are fully aware that if I did anything, it would be as a private citizen, because while I'm in their store, I'm a customer. That being said, I do go into the shops to shop, and for the most part, I'm talking with employees, joking around, grabbing food, and getting out. If stopped and asked, I usually will lend a hand, but again, I don't work there. Lastly, I only have 3 people who can override my authority on my post, my 2 direct bosses and the property manager. All 3 love me because again, I'm good at my job. We all have a the truth shall set you free kind of understanding of how any complaints go, and my word is above reproach in their eyes. I have stories about those complaints, rare as they are. Karen is a regular, but she doesn't bother me anymore, and here's her story. It starts off with me going into the grocery store on my post. As I'm walking down one of the aisles, an elderly lady stops me to ask if I could grab an item off the top shelf for her. No big deal, I'm 6'3", but I'm a friendly giant to her 4-foot and shrinking self. I obliged and moved on my merry way, and then I hear snapping behind me. I don't like that, ever. Karen is snapping her fingers at me and shouting down the aisle at me like a dog, but she might have a genuine complaint about something in my area, so let me see what she wants. Nope. Karen,
It's about time. I've been waiting here for 10 minutes. Now I can't find any of my brand of dog food. Go to the back and get me some.
me. I don't work here. I can't go in the back and do anything for you. Look for someone in a green polo. I'm in a gray and black security uniform, pretty standard. Karen,
Oh, BS. You just helped her. You can help me.
me. Even if I wanted to help you, which I don't, I'm not able to because I don't work here. I walk away as she's exploding at me. Whatever. I pay for my items and go sit in my vehicle on my job site. Karen comes out onto my site, fuming about 15 minutes later. Learned after the fact that she had gone up to the grocery store manager and complained about me, to which he just shrugged and said he doesn't work for us. He's a customer. Karen stands by her vehicle and opens a whole bag of bread freshly bought and starts throwing it in clumps on the ground. I get out of my vehicle and approach Karen as she is now my problem. Me. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to stop littering. Karen.
Forget you. I'm feeding the ducks.
Me. Okay, ma'am. I'm going to ask you to stop feeding the ducks and leave the property.
Forget you, jerk. What are you going to do about it? You don't work here.
Me. No, ma'am. I don't work for the shop. I work for the property that they rent from. The part you're standing on. The part you're currently littering on. The part that if you don't leave, I'll be forced to take the next legal action available to you. Now it's your choice. You can go or you can stay, but what happens next is on you. Karen continues her tirade. Me. Okay, your call. I call the locals. They show up and I tell them what's up. Karen goes nuclear level Karen. Gets told to leave or risk fines and trespassing, etc., etc. They don't want to deal with her either. I'm not pressing for anything just to have her gone. I'm leaning against my car just watching. Officer comes back from running her ID, instant handcuffs. Apparently, someone skipped a court date and had a bench warrant. Oops, good job, Karen. She gets hauled off to jail. And later that evening, her car gets towed for leaving it on the property overnight. Not me, another company. My final interaction with Karen happened a few days later. I'm on site. Another day, another dollar. I spot 3 or 4 women huddled over something, so I go to investigate. A baby bird fell out of a nest. I offer to take care of it and scoop it up into my hand, and it cuddles into my beard. 3 soccer moms clap and coo cause it's kinda cute. 4 looks me dead in the eyes and says,
Ew, you're that jerk.
Her cohorts turn to me and I smile and say, yes ma'am, I certainly am, and walk away with my new bird friend. Karen has never bothered me again. If you blame it on the phone system one more time, I'm canceling our support contract. We had a customer in a very old hotel with very old hardware, phone system, etc. It was classy, clean, the building was well taken care of, but the owners didn't think technology needed to be upgraded. We installed software, knowing their hardware was nearing the end of its life. The owners knew this too, but they just wanted us to make it happen. Everything ran poorly, of course, and was very unreliable. One constant problem was that the phone system would stop sending call data to be imported and charged to the guests. The problem was simple. The phone system just needed a reboot. Every time we told them this, the general manager would rant and tell us how crappy our service is, what a waste of money it is, and that we obviously aren't looking into the problem because we always tell them the same thing. Also, rebooting the ancient Hitachi phone system always fixed the problem. So one day, after the GM goes on a particularly nasty rant with one of our technicians, she fires off a long and detailed email with an accounting of every time we told her that the problem was the phone system and refused to help her. She sends it to management, the CEO, and the owners of her own company. In the conclusion of her email, she states that if we ever again tell her that the phone system is the reason for the issue with the phone system, she will cancel the support contract and look for another software vendor. Within a couple of weeks, we get another call from her about the phone system not exporting call data. Before we respond with the solution, I remind everyone that she has demanded that we not tell her it's the phone system, so we comply. Every time she calls about this issue, we give her a canned response stating that we're unable to detect any problems on our side and that she should contact a local IT professional to diagnose the problem. This goes on for months until we get an angry email from one of the hotel owners. This was before everyone had a cell phone, and they're likely missing out on thousands of dollars a month in phone revenue. The owner is furious with us and demands that we offer solutions immediately or he'll seek legal advice. I decide I'll respond. I apologize for the trouble he's experiencing and let him know that we're eager to help him, but have been forbidden to mention the cause of the issue by the general manager. I attached the previous nasty email from her, which he also got, but probably didn't bother to read, and a copy of every support ticket related to this issue, with the final note always being, customer states that rebooting the phone system has resolved the issue. Dozens of these tickets were included. The next day, the owner responds with a pretty sincere apology. Among other things, he says he tried rebooting the phone system and it worked, and that he'll speak with the general manager about it. We never heard from that general manager again. I have no idea if she got fired, but she cost them thousands of dollars. Am I the jerk for telling a classmate to stop correcting me in front of the lecturer? I was born in Ireland and lived there until I was 10 when we moved to England. I'm now 21. I've still mostly got my accent and I know a little Irish, though I've not had much cause to use it aside from holidays back to Ireland to see my grandparents as the language is dying out. I'm in university on a literature course, which has given me reason to discuss Irish-related subjects. I have this one classmate who corrects me on everything. He's corrected me on my pronunciation of Irish words, on my tellings of various myths, of various pieces of background knowledge, and it's gotten worse since we started talking about dissertations, as my topic is related to Ireland. I wouldn't mind if he was more informed than me or something, but he's just not, and the stuff he's correcting me on is ridiculous. There was one time I was talking about this myth, which has like 20 different variations within the story because it's a myth, and he interrupted me to say I was telling it wrong. Another time I pronounced a name, and he interrupted me to say, actually, it's pronounced, and then pronounced it wrong, because I am the Irish speaker here. He thinks he's right because his granddad is Irish and taught him some stuff, but his granddad is from an entirely different part of Ireland to me, so of course there's going to be variations. And I've said to him in a friendly sort of way, that's probably the way you've heard it because it's subject to a lot of variation, but here's how I've heard it. But he's cut me off every time, saying that his is definitely the correct version and that he'd happily explain it to me. And then he said again that I'm wrong because his granddad said this is the real version. Then on Friday, we were on a Zoom call. Me, him, and a few other students and a lecturer who is overseeing our dissertations. I started talking about a myth I was going to include in my dissertation, and he goes, Actually, her wedding dress was blue, because that's the custom in Ireland.
And I just said, no, it wasn't. It was red. That's the point of this story. She was rebelling. I grew up with this story. Please stop correcting me on things I know more about. It was awkward for a beat, and then I just finished telling the story. We moved on, the lecturer didn't bring it up, and the guy was silent for my whole section of the call. However, after the call, he messaged me in the group chat the whole class shares, basically saying that that was a jerk thing to do in front of the lecturer, and when people asked what happened, he and the other people in the call related what I had said to him. He wants an apology, and the general consensus of the class group chat is that an apology is warranted. Even my friends in the class, who know about my past issues with this guy, feel that shutting him down in front of the lecturer and several peers was too far, and an apology is probably the best option here. Edit. To be clear, my friends and a couple of members of the group chat don't feel that shutting him down was the jerk move. It was shutting him down in front of the lecturer that they take issue with. Am I the jerk? Update. I just said something in class. He tried to correct me. Lecturer told him to shut up and let me speak. I'm no longer worried about being the jerk. Well, what do you think? Was it wrong for OP to call him out like that or not? Please let us know.
I would have done a lot more than call him out.
Would I be the jerk if I just up and left my family for a few days? I'm definitely the responsible party in my family. Significant other, 1 biological kid, 3 stepkids, 3 dogs, and 2 cats that manages this household as far as financially and keeping it presentable. A little more than 2 weeks ago, I had surgery that put me on my butt. I stayed in the bedroom or at the kitchen table all day, every day, and was never awake for more than 3 hours at a time. It's been rough, but I'm on the mend, and now I can drive and stay awake for a reasonable amount of time, and I'm not on meds anymore. So during my 2 weeks or so of being down, my house is now trashed. My family has destroyed it. It looks bad, it smells bad, and I'd be embarrassed to have company come calling. I scrubbed this house the night before surgery to the point you could eat off my floors, which is pretty much how I keep my home all the time. I don't feel like it's my job to come in after more than 2 weeks and clean up for my lazy, disrespectful family. So I'd like to get a hotel a couple of hours away, leave them a note telling them why I'm gone, when I'll return, and what I expect to be done before I come home. If it's not done, I would leave again, and I'd make that very clear in the letter. I'm also planning to tell them that I will use the Christmas savings money for every additional day I stay in a hotel. So the longer it takes them to get crap done, the less toys and such they'll get for Christmas. I feel incredibly disrespected. I'm ashamed of my home and my family for the way they have allowed it to get. I've spent every moment where I feel even a little bit capable of it trying to clean this house up enough that I'm not disgusted. I can't keep up, and I shouldn't have had to try. I know it typically falls on me to clean, and they've always had the expectation that mom will take care of everything, but I've warned them that they have to start taking on some responsibilities. It's not fair to me that they get to go live it up, and I just have to stay home and clean to feel comfortable in my own home. So, would I be the jerk if I just took off for a few days and left it in their hands? Also, I cleaned up any mess that I made in the bedroom and at the table, as well as cleaned my bio kid's room, as she is on visit with her dad for a week. Everything else, I feel like it's their mess to clean. Want to add, they all left me alone for the weekend with the pets and went camping, assuming I'd clean the house while they're gone. They came straight home this morning and have been in bed since. Edit. I will wait for them to wake up and talk to them about everything first. As far as taking the Christmas gift money, I'm the sole earner in this house, and I pay for them to go camping every single weekend since this craziness started, and I rarely get to go because I'm home cleaning and taking care of the animals. Update. Stayed and talked, things went well. I'll be leaving tomorrow, and they agree that they're the jerks. Not a fix for everything, but it's a start, and I'll take it. My entitled mom thinks she should live for free. Background. 3 years ago, I, 24 female, decided to move my mom, who's 61, in with me when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She had multiple surgeries coming up and was not physically capable of taking care of herself. She is cancer-free now, but is not in great health. She can't work and draws disability. The first year to year and a half wasn't bad, but the last year and a half to 2 years has been a nightmare. She constantly trashes the house, leaves food laying around for days, destroys things such as my washer and dryer, has sketchy characters coming in and out that are on drugs, yells and cusses at me, tells me I'm a bad person. I could keep going forever. A few weeks ago, I told her I was done and she needed to move out. She pays me $300 out of her check, which takes care of her rent, cell phone, house insurance, electric, cable, water, and some food. I told her starting in October,
I was going to start taking the $300 and put it in a savings account until there was enough money for her to move. When she got paid in October, she gave me the money. Today she calls me at work and demands her $300, stating it is her money to do as she pleases with. I asked why she needed the money so bad, and she says it's because she wants to go on vacation to Miami. I explained to her that the $300 she gave me is rent money, as in a bill, that I just happen to be saving it rather than using it. She goes on to tell me that I'm stealing from her, that it's her money and I have to give it back to her. When I continued to say no, she said starting next month, she is going to save the money herself. Me, knowing that she will just blow the money rather than saving it, I tell her that either she gives me the $300 a month to put in savings, or she has to move out by the end of the month since she would no longer be paying rent at that point. At this point, she starts telling me I'm a bad person and a horrible kid, that no other kid would treat their mother the way I treat her, that since she is my mother, she deserves to live with me for free and shouldn't have to pay for anything, that the money she gets should strictly only be for her and what she wants, that she would save money to move when she is ready to. I had to contact my landlord and explain the situation. When she gets her next check, if she doesn't pay me, my landlord and I will be getting her evicted. It just dumbfounds me that she thinks that her 24-year-old daughter, who works full-time and goes to school full-time, should supply her with a place to live and accessories for free. I make good money for my age, but she acts like I'm a money tree. What would you do in this situation? Would you let Karen keep living with you or not? Please let us know.
Reminds me of the time you tried to kick me out, Mr. Reddit.
Burglar calls the cops on the homeowner. This story was actually told to me by a friend of mine and is a quick tale about how she turned the tables on a home invader. At the time this happened, my friend was raising her kid by herself in the suburbs of Texas. The area they lived in wasn't particularly safe, with wild beasts of both human and animal kinds, so friend armed herself and took some safety classes to protect her small family. The years go by. Her kid is now 5, and there was a series of break-ins in the neighborhood, so friend hired a security company to install security cameras around her home. One day, while reviewing footage, friend noticed a strange man lurking around the house. He seemed to wander around a bit, and then wandered away, so friend shrugged and carried on with her day. Nothing to worry about, right? Turns out, she was wrong. A few days later, friend was working in her home office and saw the same guy walking down her driveway, opened the gate, and entered her backyard. Friend realized the kitchen door was open. Her kid was playing in the living room. Friend grabbed her weapon from her purse and ran to the kitchen and got there as the guy calmly walked through her back door. Guy sauntered in, looked around the room to see friend standing there with her weapon. Guy froze. Friend, who the heck are you and why are you in my house? The guy gulped, grabbed his phone and dialed 911. Help! I'm standing in this kitchen and some crazy lady has a gun pointed at me. Friend was stunned, but didn't put her weapon down, while calmly telling her kid to go play in the other room, and they stood there, not moving, while staring the guy down, who refused to leave. Guy, you're gonna get it when the cops show up, jerk. Friend, you're in my house. Now get out. Guy actually stayed standing there until the police came into the kitchen. Guy saw the cops and started screaming, arrest her, she's crazy. Look, she has a gun on me. Friend put it down and started shaking. This is my house. You broke in. Cops stopped and stared, looked at the guy. You broke in? Guy, well, her door was open and then she pulled that on me. That's not how it works. Arrest her for having that. Friend, I have a license and this is Texas, you idiot. Cops arrested the guy, who was still howling how friend didn't do it right. Apparently, she wasn't a proper victim. Friend gave the cops a copy of the video of him sniffing around earlier in the week. She never heard anything back from them, so she figured he went to jail. Am I the jerk for setting up my ex-husband to look like a bad father? When my and my ex's daughter, Megan, was turning 13, she wanted a tiered Harry Potter cake. She loves the movies. She was very specific in what she wanted. I told her as gently as I could that I didn't think we'd be able to afford that. And my ex took what opportunity to be the fun parent and said in a doting voice, "Oh baby, don't worry. Daddy will get you your cake." She was all smiles and ran off to get her bags. I told him if he was going to promise this to order it early, cause bakeries require advance order. He got all huffy and said he knew what the heck he was doing and I should mind my own business. I said anything involving our daughter is my business. He said he didn't need my help and I should just handle the birthday party and he'd get the cake. I said okay, then they left for the weekend. I know my ex. He puts things off that aren't about him. I knew he was going to forget about the order. Usually I'd pester him so he wouldn't forget, but he said he didn't need my help, so I decided not to bring it up unless he did. But I did call a friend I have who started decorating cakes to order the cake from her. It cost a bit more than I'd have liked, but not as much as I'd been worried it would. Well, he never brought the cake up again. At least not until the day before her birthday, where he called me, frantic. He forgot to order the cake. And now none of the bakeries will take his order without tacking on a massive fee, because there's no way they can have the cake ready unless they focus their full staff on one cake. I was going to tell him not to worry. I ordered the cake for him. But then he says, "Why didn't you remind me?" I just snapped and said he needed to figure this out and he better have a cake tomorrow. Then I hung up. He brought a cake. A plain white sheet cake with red trim and one of those print-out sugar decals on the front of Harry Potter and his two friends, and a wax 11 candle. She was turning 13. He revealed the cake during her party, so everyone was sitting quiet and Megan looked heartbroken and tried to be nice, but she asked what happened to the cake she wanted. X floundered, and I let him for a few seconds before laughing. "Haha, just kidding." And then I went and pulled the cake I ordered from the kitchen. Megan lit up, and everyone laughed, and it was just one huge joke, and the rest of the party went great. But after everyone went home and Megan was in her room, X tried to lay into me about humiliating him and letting him look like a bad father. And I told him the only one who made him look bad was him. I think I was justified, but some mutual friends think I should have just told him I got the cake to keep things civil between us. Am I the jerk? Edit. I never told Megan or even planned to tell her, not until she was older maybe. But she started acting very chilly to X for a long while after her birthday party, and when he asked her why, she admitted to almost walking into the kitchen when he and I were whisper arguing the night of her birthday. She found out he had completely forgotten to order the cake, and the joke cake was actually the real cake he got her. So she was very cross with him for a long time afterwards. Edit 2. To everyone thinking I purposefully waited to have him reveal the joke cake before showing the cake I ordered, I didn't. I had planned on pulling him aside before the party and letting him know I just went ahead and ordered a cake for him. Then we'd take in the big cake and leave whatever he brought in the kitchen. But he showed up after all the guests had arrived, so I didn't have time to grab him before he set the sheet cake box on the dining room table where everyone saw it. And I knew everyone would notice us taking his short pink box into the kitchen and coming back out with a taller white one. I thought on my toes. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her ex? Please let us know.
I can see why he's the ex. The guy sounds like a real piece of work.
Do the work exactly how you want it done, even though it's ridiculously wrong? Fine by me. Some background before we start. I worked as a drone pilot / mine surveyor for a man-child, using drones to take pictures of the mines, creating a 3D model out of those pictures, and then calculating all sorts of goodies for the clients, like their gold yield and the amount of crap they have to move, etc. It's really technical and can easily go completely to crap if you don't know what you're doing. And even if you know what you're doing, it can still very easily go to complete crap. I'm licensed and certified. I've been playing the game for a long time now, and I know how it works most of the time. My ex-boss, on the other hand, didn't. See, he got his surveyor's license during the 80s by complete chance. He was a simple miner who just happened to be in the right place at the right time, getting a free university scholarship to become a surveyor because they had a few grants left over and called out who wanted it. His hand was one of the ones they picked. The second he got his license, he quit his job and convinced an old retiree surveyor to throw in his retirement, all cards on the table, to start up their own surveying business. He spent the entire time at the golf course and the bar, making a fat amount of cash out of his newly founded, self-milking cash cow. Not once did he carry out an actual survey. Heck, I doubt he's even stepped foot on a mine since then. He just invoiced the clients, told the retirees where to go, and collected a paycheck. So, time moves on, work slowly filters in, and as one does when they reach the ripe old age of 80-something, the retiree decides forget this and kicks the bucket. My boss's cash cow just died on him, and no matter how hard he squeezed, the only thing coming out of it now was dust. The only other employee was this other guy who acted as his assistant and basically just carried heavy things for him. He didn't have a backup. So, of course, he hired me. I was pretty fresh into the game at this point, starving and basically homeless, and in my eyes, this guardian angel just descended from the heavens and offered me a way out. He basically told me that we have to survey X site and get the data to X client. Didn't tell me how, didn't tell me what data exactly they want. Heck, he didn't even tell me when they needed it by. He just pointed to the place on Google, told me to get there and to get it done. Somehow I did it. I scraped by and eventually figured out just what the heck to do. At some point, we were kicked off of the mine for reasons that my boss didn't disclose to me and had to open up our own offices. My boss graciously dug deep into his pockets, kicked out his eldest son, and dedicated that room in his house to our use. Now, I was spending every day with the man, since if he wasn't at the golf course, he was at home. We started butting heads. He had this illusion in his head of how things work and how you're supposed to do things, and I had practical experience and qualifications to tell me otherwise. Every single day was a fight, and every single day he'd tell me how he wanted it to be done, and I'd just turn around and do it the way it's meant to be done. I started passing out my CV everywhere. My timing was perfect though, because a little blip and crash of the 2020 job economy happened right as I started searching. The interviews I had lined up all got canceled. The people who I already interviewed with and who seemed ecstatic to have me suddenly didn't answer my calls. I felt like a scorned lover, waiting on the curb in the rain and my socks soaking wet. I was considering maybe going back to IT. I felt hopeless and dejected, doomed to a life of taking care of a disgusting man-child and his fat wallet. Eventually, though, a second angel descended from the heavens, once again saving me. Finally, I could leave this place. I was waiting on the contract, not really willing to commit to anything without it being in writing, when my boss and I got into another massive screaming fight. After hour 3, something inside me snapped. You want it done your way? Fine, I'll do it your way. I committed hard to following his procedures every step of the way. Surveys were taking 3 times longer to do. The drone crashed 4 times, my first ever crash, and all of them were near write-offs. The 3D models stopped looking like mines and started resembling potato chips and Twizzlers. He had clients calling him day and night, non-stop, asking him just what the heck was he doing. Eventually, he gave my number to them so they could call me directly, and I started getting calls day and night, non-stop, until I just turned off my phone outside of office hours. Clients were threatening to drop the contracts. Clients were threatening to sue. My contract came in from my new company, and I signed the dotted line with a smile on my face. One client stopped calling and stopped paying. Word got out, as it always does, that his company is not legit and is just being run out of someone's home. Another client canceled the contract completely and threatened legal action. I handed in my resignation. My boss looked at me pleadingly, offering me a ton of cash to stay. I told him no. He begged me to write him a manual on how to do the work, to show him how to process the data, to fly the pits, to set up the instruments. I spent the last 2 weeks there writing out every procedure he ever told me I needed to follow, sent it through to him, and walked away. A few weeks later, when he was scheduled to do a survey, I was suddenly spammed with calls and emails and messages from him, asking how to do this or how to fly that or where to find this data. His manual wasn't working. Surprise, surprise. I don't know. Just read the manual. My new company is currently picking up all the contracts he's dropped. If we manage to get the last one, I'm going to ask them for a bonus. Karen, did you just assault me? This story just happened about 3 days ago with me, my godson, newborn, and my so-close best friend we could be sisters. Let's set the scene. Paris, Target, kinda chilly outside, and somehow it's a bit cloudy, so I thought we were gonna get cold rain. During the time my BFF came to visit, I was in the midst of getting my godbaby together to take him home. His poor mom had to work that whole weekend, so I told my BFF to come with me. On the way, my godbaby's mom asked if we could pick up some things for them from Target. Sure, why not? We see Target before we get to her house anyway, plus I needed to get some stuff afterwards, so why not get it all while we're there, right? Plus, one of my favorite cousins works there, so I could see her and finally let her see my godbaby from a distance. Might want to remember this for later on. So my friend Cash apped me, and we go off to Target. So we get in Target, and I have my godbaby in his little carrier. Unfortunately, my friend brought the one that's too big for the front of the shopping cart, so I had to put it directly inside of the cart. Since CJ is only 1 month, he's too young for a mask, so I cover the carrier in a thick enough blanket. I asked my BFF to get another cart for the shopping, and now we're set. Now, to describe what we're wearing, everyone knows Target's uniform is a basic red shirt with nothing on it and khaki pants. BFF wore a navy blue top with black flare pants and flats. I wore a V-neck burgundy top with flare sleeves and strings to tie in a bow in the front with black flare jeans with some sneakers. So we're shopping, checking off things on her list and mine. Then I'm looking over on the list and on the side of the walking area so I wouldn't be in anyone's way and feeding CJ at the same time through the blanket. My little nugget got fussy, and I noticed I forgot something for him a few aisles back. So I asked my BFF to put on a glove and hold his bottle and finish feeding him while I go get the item. I go to the aisle, looking hard because my glasses tend to slide and fall off a lot. Keep this in mind too. And then I hear that classic sound that irritates everyone so bad, it makes them want to bang their head on the floor. That classic Karen, ahem. I turn my head, and there she is. Pixie haircut, sunglasses on top of her head with no sun in sight, tight tank top, short shorts, knowing darn well it's chilly outside, and flip-flops. I'm thinking to myself, is this the Karen uniform or something? But I digress. So I move out of the way, thinking I'm in her way, and continue looking for my item, and she sighs, and I can feel her staring burn through my skin, but I wasn't letting up. Then she says,
It's hard finding good help these days. Everyone wants to be lazy.
I roll my eyes and put my head down, saying, not today. Please, just not today. I find my item and leave out the aisle. Now she's mad. Did I care? Nope. And I think she could sense that. Then she starts. Y'all know how this goes. Karen.
So, you're not going to help me?
Me. Nope. Karen. Fake gasp.
And why not?
Me. Okay. I'ma try to say this in a nice way because I see you're one of those. Ma'am, I don't work here. I give you no indication that I work here. No, I'm not on break, and no, it's not my day off. I generally do not work here. Now I'm going to leave and put this in my shopping cart so I can pay and leave the store. Karen stops me as I'm backing up.
Don't you dare walk away from me. I know you're lying. I've seen you here before working. You can't fool me. You just don't want to work. You will be fired when I'm done with you. I'm getting the manager.
Me looks her up and down. Yeah, you do that. I go back to the carts and my BFF asks me what was taking so long. I tell her everything from A to Z and she chuckles. I see she's trying to burp CJ, so I tell her to let me try. I place the towelette on my shoulder and give him a good try. I'm 2 minutes in and he burps, and when I lay him down, baby boy is asleep. Good shot, so now we can leave. But then I hear screaming and screeching. My eyes widen and my head slowly turns to the right when I see Karen coming down the wall area with a manager. BFF says, "Is that her?" Yes, that's her. So Karen gets to us, still screaming and screeching. Karen,
This is her. She should be fired for not helping a customer and lying about not working here. I'm a loyal customer. I have rights.
Me, sir, can you please tell her to keep it down? I just put my son to sleep. Second, I've already told the Wicked Witch of the Northeast that I don't work here. What part of my clothes say I work here? And even if I did and was on my day off, customers are not entitled to get help from them if they are not working. But as I have told her, I don't work here. Manager, ma'am, she really does not work here. All of this could have been avoided. Do you want me to help you? Karen,
Yes, I want you to fire her. I know you're covering for her. I've seen her plenty of times working. If something doesn't happen right now, I'm calling corporate.
Then from all of that hollering, my godbaby starts crying. So I pick him up and I'm trying to calm him down. Now I'm mad. I don't like when people disturb my son. So I snapped. Me, lady, I told you to keep the noise down because I just put my son to sleep. Now look, I got a hollering Oswald and a crying baby. Shut up and move on somewhere. Like, wow, how hard is it for you to comprehend that I don't work here? You're that embarrassed at the fact that you were wrong that you gotta keep up this image just so you can try to be right? Get away from us so I can calm my son down. I guess all of that set her off, and she paid absolutely no attention to the fact that I still had my godbaby in my arms because she lunged at me with her arm in the air. And when it came down, it looked like she got me because I moved my face quick enough for her not to. By that time, my glasses slid off and fell on the floor and broke. Yup, now I'm really upset. Those were the only glasses I had too, and I had just tried to make an eye doctor appointment this week prior. They're full this month and next month and don't have appointments to book yet. I'm beyond upset. Then the ultimate happened. My cousin. So my cousin comes around the corner being nosy as heck, and when she noticed it was me, now she wants to know what's going on. The manager wants to know what this had to do with her, and she said she was my big cousin. Both he and Karen looked at us and saw we looked so much alike, it was no wonder Karen had mixed us up. We are two sister kids. My mama is the third oldest daughter, and her mama is the baby. So the manager tells my cousin to calm me down because he sees I'm about ready to fight while he goes to call the police. He didn't ask me if I wanted the police called, he just said he was gonna call the police. Oh, that set Karen all the way off. She's kicking and screaming while he's pulling her to his office. My cousin calms me down while I'm gently bouncing to put my godbaby back to sleep. The police came, I gave them my statement, my BFF gave her statement, cousin gave her statement, because even though she didn't see it, she heard it, and she's a family member. Manager paid for the baby stuff, and the police said they'll get back in touch with me over Karen after he put her in handcuffs and put her in the back of a police car. Now, letting everyone know, yes, we did have our masks on and only took them off to talk to the manager. During the time I was burping my godbaby, I had the blanket over him. I still don't trust germs. I told my mom everything, and she was laughing. I'm just surprised my BFF didn't say anything this whole time, because knowing her, she would have jumped in. Sorry for the long story. Am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law it's weird that she thinks she gets a say on things relating to my daughter? My mother-in-law is mostly a person who's easy to get along with, but for some reason, the lady has snapped after we announced that I'm pregnant. We let her get out all of her excitement, but didn't really encourage it. She keeps doing this weird thing where she refers to the baby as her baby. If I can be honest, I'm sure it'll change as time goes on, but I find the whole thing rather boring. Congrats! Someone who I just so happen to be married to got me pregnant. It's really not that exciting or interesting, and I cannot relate to women who never shut up about it. It's like the only thing anyone wants to talk to me about. Anyway, mother-in-law was over a few weeks ago and started talking names. She told me to give her a list and she'd go through and let us know which ones she liked or didn't like. I asked her why that was necessary, and she said, "Oh, you know, just making sure we're on the same page." I asked for clarification to that, why we'd need to be on the same page, and she started getting a bit cagey about it.
"Oh, you know, just one of those things. Gotta make sure everyone's on board with the name."
At that point, I cleared my throat and said, very kindly but firmly, "There's no reason for anyone else to be on board with the names we've chosen." She got a bit upset at that and said,
"Well, it's my grandchild, my baby."
I said, "No, she's not your baby. Grandchild, yes, but you don't think you get a say in anything involving her, do you? Like, you don't think you get any say in her name, how she's raised, what school she goes to, how she dresses, any of it, right? You know you're not the parent here, right?" Well, she blew up, calling me ungrateful. For what? You aren't doing anything. Snobby, snooty, the whole shebang. I just got up and said I was bored with the conversation and went to the backyard to go read in the sun while she melted down to my husband about how I'm stealing all the joy from her and that don't I get that grandma is the most important role she'll ever play? My husband told her to knock off the theatrics and go home, and now she's going all over social media playing up what a victim she is because I guess now we're keeping her baby away, which isn't true. They haven't even been born yet. I've had so many pushbacks from my family telling us we need to just get over it and learn to accept that grandma is going to be around and that, yeah, maybe she should get a say in some things. After all, it's her grandchild. I'm at a loss here. Maybe this is some weird cultural thing. We're in the Southwest US. Everyone is some bland mix of white. No religious stuff other than the usual fake Catholic stuff. Am I the jerk? Edit. Well, this was certainly a post. I'm glad I'm generally not the jerk. The claims that I'm trying to be edgy and not like the other girls are honestly depressing. I didn't expect people to get so upset because a woman would dare not think having a baby is the most OMG sacred, beautiful, lovely thing or whatever. I hope those of you who think that it's a not like the other girls thing can maybe get out there and explore what different women are actually like, and not just the ones in your immediate lives. Women come in all shapes and sizes, attitudes and personalities. Being one way is not a condemnation of how other women are. Being bored by childbirth and all of that isn't a condemnation for those who think it's a big deal or a miracle. Calling me edgy or a tryhard is such a very Reddit thing to say about a woman who doesn't behave the way you think she should. Best of luck to everyone, and thanks for the kind words. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her mother-in-law? Please let us know.
"I think grandma's overstepping her boundaries, but it's just because she's so excited."
I do work here, but not for you. I work in IT contracting and specialize in quality control and software testing, and this happened about 10 years ago. I was hired by a company, client, as a member of their governance team. Basically, we were to assess the company they hired, Big Tech, to create their software and their testing standards and plans. Governance teams are hard to utilize correctly and only any good if the person you report to understands. Client was my customer and Alan was my boss from the company. So they decided to change our role to working directly with Big Tech on their test teams to watch what they were doing and bringing up any issues to Alan. I am packing up to leave one day and Big Tech project manager appears out of nowhere and asks to have a meeting. Never spoke to the guy before, but I knew who he was. A bit surprised, I asked if it could wait till tomorrow as the day was over and he said that it's one of the things I need to discuss. A bit miffed, I agree. So we're going into a meeting room with windows where you can still see the office floor. He asks me to look out on the office and tell him what I see. No idea what he wanted me to say. I was a bit dumbfounded, so I said, "People working." He nods his head, repeating it, and then asks why I am not with them and was going home and why I was not dressed appropriately for a client's site and so unprofessional. Now I see the issue. He obviously thinks I work for him and not the client directly. I explained that I've done my work for the day and ask if he expects me to stay in the office doing nothing. He goes into a long-winded explanation of how the longer we are in the office, the more they have to pay. Intrigued, I asked, does that mean I would get paid more? Or is it that I should do unpaid overtime so Big Tech makes more money? He explained I was a salaried employee and should be grateful for the experience I was getting with their world-class company. I ask again that if I have no more work, should I stay to charge the client more? And what should I do while I have nothing to do? He's getting a little frustrated with me and his tone is getting more aggressive and he said I should just look busy while I stay late. That is when I said, "You aren't my boss. I work for client and Alan is my boss, not you." Alan was the person he reported progress and billing to. I was hired to make sure Big Tech was accurately creating the software and not overcharging the client. You have just outlined how you are overcharging and tried to reprimand me for not taking part. You accused me of being unprofessional and not dressing professionally. My belief is that you are acting unprofessionally, and it doesn't matter what you look like, and your insistence of the appearance of being busy to hide inaction illustrates this. You also appear to be taking advantage of your employees, and importantly, you do not know who does and doesn't work for you. He freaked out completely and started asking if we could keep this among ourselves, and that if I badmouthed the company, I would affect my chances of getting work in the future as they are so big. Explained it would not be very professional of me and that I would be accurately reporting on what was said. I asked if there was anything more he wanted to discuss as he had called this meeting, and I normally charge for overtime because I don't like being taken advantage of. Then I left the room laughing, telling him he may have some things to explain tomorrow. When I arrived the next day, he wasn't in his office, which was very unusual as he was there first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. I open up the calendar and look up Big Tech meetings and see PM has canceled all of his meetings for the day. I ring my boss and ask if he knows why PM is not in today and we should have a meeting. He's up for the meeting, but said PM has had some family emergency and the new person was going to the PM in a few days. We have our meeting and I explained what happened. He was furious. He wanted the names of the people who were staying late and just surfing the net. Now I worked side by side with these people and knew they didn't have any choice. Explained that they weren't the issue, but being forced to stay by Big Tech made them stay, and that they were actually good at the work, and realistically, replacing them would stall the project. So he decided to get the timesheets and billing together. Suddenly, all the billing reports were password protected, and they couldn't get in touch with PM due to the family emergency. A lot of reports gone missing from the sharp point with all of the PM's name showing very late hours. He asked me to try and find the information while he contacted Big Tech to explain what's going on. As I'm looking through SharePoint, I notice that PM is still logged in and actively deleting files. So I contact the security section to kick him out of the system and get backups of SharePoint. Go to my boss's office and he's on the phone with Big Tech and he puts it on speakerphone and tells them I'm on the call. He explains that Big Tech can't contact PM due to the family issue. So I point out he was just on our network deleting files 20 minutes ago. Silence is deafening from the other end. Tell them the files deleted and password protected now are all being restored and we would have them in a couple of hours. More silence. My boss then says, are they concerned about the content of these files and why is PM logging onto their servers deleting files? More silence. I could go into the whole thing, but basically piles of documentation proving overcharging. The PM had been too stupid to understand the client's SharePoint was not his Big Tech SharePoint because they have the same name. He was not having a family emergency, shocker, right? And they were hiding him and letting him resign with a package. Now, everyone knew what happened, and you would think the staff of Big Tech would hate me. But the opposite happened. They were told not to do any more overtime without 3 signatures for approval from the client. It effectively stopped all overtime and made them all very happy. I've met many of them, since on other projects they still thank me for getting PM out of the way. He did get other jobs, but was let go several times because of all of his talk of being able to get projects over the deadline. He had no ability and would just tell people to work longer hours. That is not sustainable and doesn't address problems with specification and design issues. My grandma called the cops on me for refusing to cut the neighbor's yard. My cousin was reminding me of this story and finds it hilarious. I was repressing it so well for 7 years. A little background is, I lived with my grandmother shortly after I graduated college and my mom passed. My grandmother has a tendency for treating anyone living with her like her personal help. She comes to me one morning while I'm on my laptop asking if I'll trim the neighbor's bush. This is so she can see down the street and it's currently blocking her view. I explain multiple times that it's on their property and she needs to talk to them about it. She tells me they won't mind, and I ask to get them on the phone to confirm, but she doesn't want to disturb them. One could argue a loud power tool would also do that. We go back and forth for a good bit while she calls me lazy and entitled. After about 30 minutes, she threatens to call the cops, and I wish her the best of luck and go outside to clean my car and breathe, since I'm obviously not getting anything done inside. What got me nervous was she said something along the lines of,
"I can tell the police anything, and they'll believe a little old lady over a young punk."
I planned on leaving, but didn't want to look like I was fleeing in case she actually did call them. About 15 minutes later, 2 cop cars show up, and I just roll my eyes. 2 officers go immediately inside, and one is standing outside talking to me. I calmly explain my side of the story. Apparently, she's inside giving them a tale claiming she's being mistreated by me. I asked the police to explain the accusations and was told she claims I'm mistreating her because I'm quiet and I keep to myself, and that I gave her a small bruise on the back of her arm above the elbow. The cop talking to me laughed it off, saying how that looks like she bumped into something, and this is the first time he's gotten a call for someone being too quiet. What's wrong with me? I think the cop who talked to me first could tell what I was dealing with and remarked how exhausted I looked. He told me they're writing it off and advised I stay somewhere else for a few days. He's dealt with calls like this before, explaining it's people who want to complain and others up in the crosshairs. Ends up, she hasn't even mentioned the bush. Her list of grievances hasn't gotten there yet. The other 2 cops had left, and the one who talked to me gave her a big lecture on how she's only allowed to trim things on her property, and some stories about serious altercations he's dealt with. I'm sure he was giving me ample time to pack, while also probably venting about this non-issue. I walk out with the officer, and she seems to think they're taking me to jail. I guess she thinks you get to take a duffel bag with you. He's making sure I have everything, including my car keys and a safe place to go. He also gives me his card in case I need any help in the future or just need to talk. As I leave, I hear her asking the officer if they'll let me out Monday, as she'll need me to run errands, and he's like, I don't know when he'll return, but you wanted him out, so we're working on that. He's smiling, but giving off a very, "Lady, that's your problem" vibe. I stayed with my girlfriend for at least a week while getting voicemails each day from my grandmother asking if and when I'm coming home. Have you ever had a relative call the cops on you? If so, why? Please let us know.
"I'm calling the cops on you if you don't hurry up and get to the next story."
Karen slapped me because I was ignoring her. I am an 18-year-old male, born completely deaf and mute. Also, I am partially blind in my left eye. I live with my sister, who's 28, who had been taking care of me since our parents have passed. Recently, she got married and went on her honeymoon, so I'm on my own for a few weeks. This happened yesterday. Usually, whenever I go out, I am accompanied by my sister due to my disability. But now, since she is on her honeymoon, I had to go out alone. There was a new supermarket opened in our area, and I needed some items, so decided to go there and grab them. My bad for wearing a red-colored shirt almost similar to the employees working there. But if you look closely, you could see that it was not the uniform. I was at the electronics section looking for some batteries when I see an old man struggling to get some DVDs on the top shelf. Since I'm tall, I helped him. He thanked me, I can do lip reading, and went on his way. Then I began looking for the batteries. That's when I felt someone grab my left wrist. I turned around and a woman in her late 40s slapped me. She was speaking something, but I couldn't follow her lips as she spoke too fast. However, I was able to catch some words like, "You, ignore, job," etc. So I signed to her that I am deaf. Apparently, this was a wrong move because she became more irate towards the signs. Again, she was yelling something, but I couldn't catch anything. So I took my notebook and started writing that I am deaf and mute. Before I could finish, she grabbed my notebook and pen and threw them away. Then she slapped me again and pushed me to the ground. Luckily, by this time, a store employee came to see what the commotion was about. He saw me on the ground and helped me up. Then he asked me what happened. Before I can sign to him, Karen starts to yell at the employee. I don't know what she said as she was not facing me. After she finished, I signed to the employee that I cannot hear or speak. Fortunately, he understood and explained this to the lady, but she is still not convinced. She tries to give me again, but I moved away. Then I wrote and showed the employee to call the cops on her. The employee nodded and called the cops. Karen tried to run away, but the security caught her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes. They first talked to the employee who explained the situation about how Karen had assaulted me because she mistook me for a store employee. One police officer comes and speaks to me. I understood that he wanted my version of events, so I wrote everything down and showed it to the officer. Then they went to check the CCTV footage. Then they came back and asked me if I wanted to press charges. I gladly said yes. Karen was then placed in handcuffs and given a free ride in the back of a police cruiser. The manager then explained to me that Karen thought I worked there, and she became angry that I ignored her. She had been standing on my left side, so obviously I couldn't see her. The store manager then offered me a 50% discount on the products. I texted my sister about the events that happened, and she was livid. Oh, did I mention that my sister is a lawyer? She told me that she herself will be handling the case and would see that Karen would get maximum time. Court date is in around 40 days. I will update about it after court. Edit. I noticed many were asking about masks. She was indeed wearing one, but during that encounter, she had it on under her chin and was not covering the nose or her mouth. Also, lawyers in India can represent their family in court as long as they are not directly involved in it and the judge is not a relative to the lawyer. If this happened to you, would you press charges on Karen or not? Please let us know.
I dare you to press charges on me.
Am I the jerk for not giving my brother and his wife the bigger room? My brother's wife lost her job, which has caused them to lose the house they were renting. My brother asked if they could stay with me. I talked to my boyfriend and he said sure. So I told my brother yes, but he can't bring any of their furniture with them. We don't have any room for any of it. Our spare room has a bed and dressers in it already. He'll have to find a place to store their things. He wasn't happy about it, but said okay, and that was that. When they started moving their clothes and whatnot in, they started complaining about how small the room was. I ignored it because they were used to a rather large house, and I was sympathetic because I know how it feels to go from having everything to nothing. I apologized and told them that this was the best we had. Issue. My son was in his room and started crying. I went in there to check on him and my brother got mad. I usually keep his door closed when he's napping. I have a baby monitor. And I guess my brother saw how large his room is. It's not big at all, by any means. It's just bigger than the spare room. He asked why the heck we gave him the small room when we can just move our son into the spare room. I told him I'm not moving my son and all of his things into a different room when the spare bedroom is perfectly fine for the two of them as long as they don't try to move their entire house into one room. He got mad, she got mad, and they threw a fit. Then my brother asked why we don't move my son into our room. I told them that my son's crib won't fit in our room, and again, I'm not moving him just to accommodate them. The last week or so has been very tense. Small comments here, cold shoulder there, petty shoulder checks from his wife if we cross close together. I've kept my mouth shut because I love my brother, and I don't want to cause trouble. Plus, if they weren't so petty, they wouldn't be that hard to live with. They've started to complain that my son's crying at night is keeping them awake, which I get, but he's a baby. He only wakes once a night to eat, and that's not even all the time. This morning it all came to a head when my brother told me I should move into the spare room and let them have mine and my boyfriend's room so that they don't get woken up by the baby. When I told him no, he started yelling, calling me selfish and entitled, told me that I should let them have my room because my son is an annoying little jerk that keeps them up every night, all night. Where I may be the jerk, I saw red. Let me start this by saying I did not yell at my brother as he yelled at me. I said, "If you can't appreciate the room you were given, you can go elsewhere. My boyfriend and I have been more than accommodating to you. You constantly complain. You're ungrateful and rude. Get over yourself or get out of my house. ETA, I'm asking if I'm the jerk because my mother called and told me I'm the jerk for not giving the married couple the big bedroom with the connected bathroom. And apparently my other siblings agree. ETA 2, they do not pay rent. My boyfriend and I own our home and don't pay anything on it. They pay the difference on the electricity bill and buy some of their own groceries. I do the majority of the cooking and all the cleaning. ETA 3, boyfriend and I are going to talk about kicking them out tonight when he gets off work. ETA 4, I will update y'all tomorrow." Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is their brother the jerk? Please let us know.
OP's the jerk for not kicking them out sooner.
Have the students build it. I am a technology education teacher who always went above and beyond for my school, students, and administrators. I spent countless hours designing and building things for the school, signs, murals, wall art, games, etc. I really didn't mind because I enjoy the design challenges that go along with these builds. That was until I received a pink slip. For those of you who are not aware, a pink slip basically means that I may be losing my job the following school year. This really upsets me because I had received great observations, become a role model for our students, and put in dozens of unpaid hours to create these side projects for the school. I had a meeting with my assistant superintendent who basically told me that she appreciated all of my hard work but didn't see much value in my program, and with budget cuts coming down the pike, I would most likely be losing my job. Now, it needs to be mentioned that tech ed is not like the traditional shop classes of the 70s where students would build birdhouses and ashtrays. My curriculum focused primarily on STEM with heavily involved hands-on applications. I related otherwise dry material to awesome projects that all the students enjoyed. Kids actually liked their schoolwork, and she knew it. It's also worth noting that both the valedictorian and salutatorian were going to Ivy League colleges to pursue STEM degrees. Needless to say, I was beyond livid. The week following the meeting, my principal asked me if I was interested in building some new games for the cafeteria that students could play when they finished eating. Easy table games like mini hockey, checkerboards, etc. to alleviate students from getting out of control. I explained that I could not complete the project and that was that. Until the assistant superintendent caught me in the hallway and told me, "Just have the students build it." So that is exactly what I did. I tasked my laziest and most unqualified students for a special project, the result of which was glorious. Checkerboards that didn't even have squares, hockey boards with splinters or uneven goals, laser-engraved puzzles that did not fit together. I thanked the students and asked the assistant superintendent to come on down to my lab because the students' projects were done and they were excited to show them off. In she walks, and upon seeing the projects, looks me dead in the eye. She now has a decision to make. 1, ask me what the heck happened, or 2, tell the students to their faces what a great job they did. She opted for choice 2, going on and on about how great everything looks and how proud she was of the students, while I had the biggest smile on my face knowing how crappy they turned out. I thanked her for suggesting to have the students build it as she left with essentially a pile of scrap wood. The projects never made it to the cafeteria. I resigned from that school and took a job that paid $12,000 more at a place where I was valued. They ended up keeping the position and begged me to stay on board. I realized resigning was my best option because I could get an early jump on all of the new openings as opposed to being let go at the end of summer, which would leave me with the worst schools that could not find a teacher. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that just because she recently became a foster parent does not mean she's a super mom? Buckle up, ladies and gents. I'm probably the jerk, or at least I feel like a dumb jerk currently. So I'm 26, female, and I have a 7-year-old daughter. My sister, my twin, has chosen to never have her own kids and to be a foster mom. She was approved for this going on a month and a half ago, and as of 3.5 weeks later, she was chosen to foster a 10-year-old sweetheart of a boy. She has only had him for around 2 weeks. I have always been supportive of this decision. Now my issue is that since she has had this boy in her care, she's become overbearing. Mommy mode kicked in full force, which is great, but she is now overstepping everyone else with their own kids. For instance, she recently read a book that stated kids ages 10 and under should have no more than 30 minutes of screen time a day, as it stunts mental growth. So now, every time she's over, she will flip off my TV, which I use for music, as my daughter doesn't really watch TV. Or she read somewhere that if you even so much as speak loudly, even while laughing, it triggers kids' minds and upsets them. So now, whenever she is at any of our homes, she instantly slaps her hands over our mouths if we are too loud because she doesn't want to upset the boy. The final straw was her coming over yesterday and saying she needed to talk to my daughter alone. When my daughter came back in, she was crying. I asked her what was going on, and she said, "Auntie told me I'm not being nice because I wouldn't let Christopher play with my special doll, and that I made him upset because he doesn't have anything special, so I need to share. She said I need to let Christopher play with it." Her special doll is kept on her shelf and not even played with by her, as her deceased grandfather gave it to her. It's a collectible. My sister was sitting there with a smile on her face and said, "See? All taken care of," and then proceeded to walk to my daughter's room to grab the doll. I lost it. I told her to leave, and just because she has been a mom for 2 weeks does not make her a super mom, and that her actions are making it harder to deal with her. I told her that once she learned to act like an adult and stop forcing all of us to follow her pathetic rules, she would be allowed back, but not a moment before. I also told her that the doll is staying on the shelf and I don't give a darn who that offends. She's saying that I'm an insensitive jerk and will not be allowed to be around my nephew until I apologize. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
I think her sister needs to stop reading all those books and give her a good manga instead.
Man gets his car crushed by not paying his repair bill. Not my story, but my father's. Took place in the early 2000s. He's a master mechanic who can literally work on any car, foreign or domestic. He's teaching me right now, and it's an honor to learn from him. He's always run his own independent repair shop almost as long as I can remember, and he told me this story recently, and it just seems perfect for this sub. So this guy comes in with a pretty nice Chrysler convertible to get his transmission fixed. He had to remove the transmission, disassemble, and rebuild it. Pretty long process, but it's no problem. After a day's work, he calls the customer up and says his car is ready and reminds him of the agreed price of about $1,200. The guy said he could only pay $600 then, and he'd have to get back to him on the rest. Now, this isn't out of the ordinary. Where we live, most people aren't exactly wealthy, and my dad's a nice guy. He single-handedly supported 4 kids and a wife, so we weren't exactly rich. It's not uncommon for people to pay in installments. He doesn't charge interest or fees or anything, just tries to do what's right. The guy pays half his bill, and with the promise of paying the remaining amount in a few weeks, he leaves with his car. About 2 months pass, however, and the guy hasn't paid. Hasn't even contacted my dad about any issues or to say something like he lost his job or something. So my dad calls him up and asks when he thinks he'll be able to pay the rest of his bill. And I kid you not, this is how the conversation went. Dad: "Hi, I was wondering when you'll be able to pay the rest of your bill." Guy: "Oh, yeah, about that. I'm not paying it." Dad, surprised: "What? Is something wrong with the car? If something went wrong, I'll take care of it." Guy: No, the car runs great. I'm just not gonna pay you." Dad: "What? Why?" "Well, I have the car now, so I don't see any reason to pay you." They went back and forth a bit before my dad realized it was pointless and decided to enact some sweet revenge. He calls up a local towing company and gives them the guy's address, license plate, and car description and tells them to tow the vehicle to the county recycling center. He then calls up the recycling center and says, "Hey, you're going to be getting a Chrysler convertible. Here's the license plate from this towing company. When it gets there, I want you guys to crush and recycle it." And so they do. Car was crushed and recycled. The next day, the guy shows up at my dad's business furious with the state patrol. My dad explains the entire story, and the cops tell the guy that technically the vehicle was moved, not stolen. The recycling center received recyclable goods and not stolen property, and now the car no longer exists as it's been recycled, and thus was not a criminal matter but a civil one. So the guy sues my dad, and once again, my dad explains the entire story, and amazingly, the judge says the same thing as the troopers and dismissed it. It sounds almost unbelievable because it just seems so illegal, but if a judge rules in his favor, it's gotta have some merit by a technicality or something. Granted, this was maybe 15 years ago, so the laws could have changed since, but wow, this guy gets his car crushed simply because he chose not to pay the remaining repair bill and wanted to take advantage of someone's kindness. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend's sister in front of the entire family that I don't care about her opinion? She is 43 and I'm 29, female. I've been with my boyfriend for 2.5 years. I have a 3, almost 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. I only just met my boyfriend's sister this past year because my boyfriend and I both live out of state. Now, within the first week of moving back to this state is when I met her. My daughter obviously came with me and she's not a fan of strangers at all. She clung to me the entire time and refused to be put down. This is the first encounter with this woman and it really sets me off. Her one and only reaction to seeing my kid in obvious discomfort around strangers was to tell me I needed to put my kid down and let her scream because she needed to learn she wasn't going to get her own way. My boyfriend, who is a godsend, took my daughter upon hearing this and brought her outdoors to play and basically told his sister that it was none of her business. For a while, she toned it down, though the comments did come often. They were more passive-aggressive comments that weren't spoken to me, such as, "Everyone babies their kids today," or, "When I was growing up, I was lucky to get any attention if I acted the way some of these kids act." Because of these comments, we do not go over there often and I'm far from close with her. Fast forward to last weekend. She had a small birthday party for her niece. She tends to go all out during these events because she has no kids of her own and cannot have them. She invited over 20 people and we didn't know any of them, including my boyfriend, who collectively knew like 6 people. My daughter was super overwhelmed and again wouldn't let me set her down. My boyfriend's sister took this as a moment to call me out in front of everyone while having a conversation with her sister-in-law, my boyfriend's brother's wife, who is pregnant with their first kid. She said, "See, you need to nip that in the bud early on or you will have a Klingon and end up going to college with them." A lot of people laughed. My face was beet red. I was embarrassed, overwhelmed, and irate. My boyfriend immediately jumped to my defense and his sister put her hands up and said, "I'm just saying." This is when I responded with, "And we don't give a darn about your opinion on how I should and shouldn't raise my daughter." We then took leave. My boyfriend is now getting messages from people that were there, who have never heard how terrible his sister can be to me and my daughter, stating that I acted disrespectful and that I need to drop my attitude. That since I am now a part of this family, that I need to start taking people's opinions and applying them, and that calling her out in front of everyone was a jerk move. They also tried saying that the sister started crying in front of everyone after we left and said, "I feel so hurt and disrespected that I need to go have a moment by myself," and apparently went upstairs to her room for 20 plus minutes. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister-in-law? Please let us know. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.